Sports Talk coming to you on a victory. Nope, not a victory anything. The Royals still stink, and the Chiefs are figuring out their 53-man roster. Boy, do we got a lot to get to on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Jake LeBon, Brendan Dorzinski, Dan Lucero with you, and lots to discuss here. The Chiefs trading, the Chiefs potentially putting Chris Jones on a specific line of the roster that never really gets used, potentially. We got so much to talk about. We will get to our Chiefs over-unders. We will discuss a little bit of college football, continuing our Big 12 preview of this week. We are going to hear from Jesse Newell on all things Chiefs coming up in the 3 o'clock hour. We'll hear from Michael Swain in the 4 o'clock hour. We've got plenty of 580 Sports headlines, Random Question Tuesday, all of that today on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Let us know your thoughts. Hit us up on our text line. Very easy to get to, 785-272-9429. You can also check us out on YouTube. Go to youtube.com. You type in the search function, 580 Sports Talk. It is so easy to get to. Then you click on the link, and you can watch all the videos, recaps, all of that coming up. Should be a lot of fun today and as we start the college football week. KU's playing on a Friday. I'm still not over that.
It sucks.
I hate it.
I don't know why they've chosen to do that. It's clearly a choice at this point. I just wish they would choose differently.
It's back-to-back Fridays. Like, I'm okay with the solo Friday. I am. It's a one-off. So be it. I would rather you not, but I, like most people, are understanding. The back-to-back ones irritate me. Now, one of them, they didn't have a choice because I was ESPN, but that's here nor there. That's coming up on Friday. We will get to all of that coming up here.
That one is more
week.
Defensible than this week.
Correct.
Because,
yes.
Okay.
It's ESPN, and I get that.
You want the national game.
Yep.
Okay.
K-State's playing on a Friday. Like, it's just, it's the way it is.
You're on ESPN Plus on week one. Like, I said it yesterday. You could absolutely go find enough kids who work at the KUJ school to put on a football broadcast. I've watched the Big 12 now basketball broadcasts, okay? I know what their standard of quality is. I know there's enough J school kids that could figure it out for 3 hours one time.
Yeah.
That's essentially what the Big Ten Network's been doing for years.
So we got lots to get to.
Really
we really do. And we're going to give away some NASCAR Xfinity race tickets tomorrow. Should be a lot of fun. We'll give away some 4-packs on September the 9th. This next Saturday, if you want to go watch the NASCAR Xfinity race. That's the Saturday race, not the Sunday race. We will be giving those away to some texters, call-ins, all that good stuff. But we start things off with, holy cow, ladies and gentlemen, start your trading, and that's what's happening right now as rosters are getting set. The Kansas City Chiefs have been very, very active. First off, this morning, the Kansas City Chiefs traded Smith-Marsette. That's right. A conditional 7th-round pick swap with the Carolina Panthers. That means the Chiefs' 8th best wide receiver is as good, or the Carolina Panthers think maybe even better than their 4th or 5th.
We got to trade.
And so we do. We got to trade for Smith-Marsette going to the Panthers for a swap of 7th-round picks, which honestly, I think it's a steal for the Panthers. Okay, the Panthers pick, let's say they finish 10th in the draft order this year, okay? So they're 10th, and the Chiefs finish 30th, and they're going to swap them. So you gain 20 spots.
In the 7th round. We are going to cut this player, but this team really wants him. Let's just do him a solid and get him to a place where we know that they want him badly enough to make a trade instead of wait out the waiver process.
And I think it's a steal for the Carolina Panthers. I really, really do. Maybe I'm too high on Smith-Marsette.
Steal's a bit much. Like, I think it's a good bit of business by the Panthers to add a player who I think is an NFL caliber receiver.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think the Chiefs did, like, when you say somebody got a steal, you assume that somebody on the other side didn't get appropriate value. I don't think the Chiefs got inappropriate value for wide receiver 8.
Yeah, I think you could actually argue it. If anyone got a steal, it might be the other way.
No,
the Chiefs...
Carolina got a steal to me.
No, but
you're going the other way?
I'm arguing the other way because one way or the other, Ihmir Smith-Marsette was not going to be a member of the Kansas City Chiefs beyond 3 o'clock today. One way or the other, he was not going to be a member of this team. So if any stealing, technically, it was either you cut him for nothing or you trade him and you move up 20 spots in the 7th round. And again, that doesn't mean it's a bad move for Carolina. I think that's one of those teams that we were talking about yesterday that if you need help in your receiver room, you go get a guy like that. And right now, Carolina's top receivers, Adam Thielen, who's got good hands, a good route runner, but he's old. Terrace Marshall, who probably just got hurt again. He's probably going to miss another 3 weeks like he's always hurt. And Shi Smith. You know who Shi Smith is? You and most people. Yeah, like that's what their wide receiver room is right now. So, yeah, that's a team that could use a guy like that. He went to South Carolina, by the way.
So that happened earlier today. And then about, 30 minutes ago, the big trade that occurred.
We got a trade.
And it is the Chiefs have acquired Newell from the Raiders for a 6th round pick. Now, interesting that it's traded in division. Newell was drafted last year in the 4th round.
126th overall.
He did not play a whole lot, just over 100 snaps.
9 games, 158 snaps.
Yeah, not a lot. And he was traded to the Chiefs. Now, it depends on who you get your information from, okay? Adam Schefter tweeted out, with Chris Jones still holding out, the Chiefs traded a 6th round pick to the Raiders for defensive tackle Newell per sources. So my question is this more about Chris Jones or is this more about Tershawn Wharton? And let me explain. If they just were looking for defensive tackle help, would they have released Danny Shelton? Because they also have released Deion Bush and Danny Shelton. Now, both of those guys have been in the league longer than 4 years, so they will clear waivers. They're free agents. Now, maybe the Chiefs went up to Danny Shelton and said, hey, we need more defensive line help. We don't think Daniel Wise is good enough. We don't think, the rest of the guys that are in there. So we are going to give up a 6th round pick to go get a 2nd-year guy. Now, clearly looks like the Raiders are probably going to, were they going to cut Newell? I don't know. Following a lot of Raiders people recently because of all of this. He was not in high standards with the Raiders. Not a lot of the Raider contingent think that he was all that great. Still think he would have made the team because I doubt he would go all the way through to the Chiefs through waivers because he would have to go through waivers because he's a 2nd-year guy.
Yeah.
And maybe the Chiefs just said, no, we think there's something with Newell. We can turn him into something because I think the Raiders organization is an absolute dumpster fire and we're going to coach him up. Joe Culley's going to coach him up and we're going to be good. So there's a lot of ways you could do this. You could say, well, they were able to acquire a defensive tackle for 3 years, this year, next year, and the year after that, obviously. And we still will keep Danny Shelton because we can say, Danny, don't go sign anywhere else. We'll sign you the practice squad so we can try to make this thing work. But if you're giving up a 6th round pick, he's on your roster. I mean, the Raiders are saying, look, we made a bad trade. At least we can get a 6th round pick for him. And the Chiefs, I wonder if this isn't Chris Jones insurance. Is this Tershawn Wharton insurance? Do they think he's going to be healthy enough? Or is this a future move because you've got him now for 3 years? This is like drafting someone for the Kansas City Chiefs in the 6th round this year, and you get him for 3 years.
I like Tershawn Wharton, I think, more than most Chiefs fans. That's not the caliber of player you get insurance for. Like, he's just not.
Okay.
there are other Tershawn Whartons you could have claimed on waivers or you could have found off the street. Like they went an entire year without him. That you don't need insurance for Tershawn Wharton. And I like him, and I think he's got a place on this team. But I don't think that's a kind of thing that is out there existing. You could argue that this is a long-term play, but I would dispute that because they just signed a space-eating, or they just drafted, I should say,
Coburn,
a space-eating defensive tackle for future purposes.
What if that's not what Farrell is, though? What if they don't view him as just a space eater, just a Derek Nottie or a Keandre Coburn type? What if they think there's some pass rush potential there and that he could be potentially a 3-down defensive tackle or the kind of guy that you can rotate out there for any down, any situation?
I think that I would agree, and I think that's an entirely fair a possibility here. I have watched a grand total of like 3 Neil Farrell snaps in my life knowingly. He went to LSU, so I saw some while he was there unknowingly.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen the ones that have gotten tweeted today, like retweeted by Seth Kaiser, the chief of the North newsletter, about how, hey, look, here's a good play he ran. And then another Raiders writer who said he was really good in the preseason, but is not very good in practice. But I do have Nick Jacobs of KSHB, his draft profile on Neil Farrell in front of me. Nick Jacobs does an incredible job. I don't know how you produce TV news every night and still have time to watch like 1,400 more prospects every year for the draft. Essentially wrote that he's a fat defensive tackle who takes plays off, and his body is he's too oversized and can't play more than a few snaps at a time. That's essentially what it comes down to. Says he's got some skill, good at taking on double teams, one technique, doesn't have good conditioning and takes plays off. That to me, and things change. Guys mature, guys get into the league, they work on the body, things change. This is an old report from previous draft. I get that. Mm-hmm. That to me says you're going to get stuck on the line of scrimmage eating up blockers. So I don't know. I'm not going to claim I'm an expert on it, but that's what that would lead me to believe. So if that is the case, it doesn't even really feel like Chris Jones insurance, because Chris Jones is a pass rush like that. He is a pass rushing interior lineman. It doesn't feel like Farrell's that guy. Again, I'm not going to claim to be an expert on his profile. This more just feels like they liked him more than they liked Shelton, or more than they liked, whatever other depth they had behind Nottie.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. This will be an interesting one to hear from Brett Veach about when we finally do hear from him later this week, what in the profile that they liked. Because you can find some clips. I was reading through a Raiders blog. It was a post from last season about, hey, should we be playing this guy more? And it really all seemed to kind of come down to how quick he got off the ball. He wasn't always real quick off the ball. When he was quick off the ball, there's some strength, there's some punch, there's some potential there. He just wasn't always quick off the ball. The thing about the Chiefs, you mentioned Joe Cullen. He's one of the best defensive line coaches in the league. Like, there are few guys who have the reputation, the name around the league when it comes to developing defensive linemen that Joe Cullen has. So the Chiefs are an organization that can look at a guy and say, hey, we love the potential here. It hasn't been unlocked elsewhere for whatever reason, but we think we can unlock it. And you give him that benefit of the doubt because Joe Cullen is the one tutoring those guys. So that's where it gets interesting for me, is whatever potential they see in Neil Farrell, they think they can get it out of him. And the Raiders, clearly, doesn't speak well for how the Raiders evaluated him when they took him with a 4th-round pick and they dump him for a 6th a year later. That's not great. But again, some guys just need that change of scenery. Some guys need a different role, different scheme, different tutoring, and we'll see if it clicks. But this is not a season changer one way or another.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And that's why I think people, and the reason I brought up
a surprise, I will say that.
The reason I brought up, Adam Schefter. Old Shefty doesn't do anything without some type of, kickback, it seems like.
Yeah, out of curiosity.
The reason I bring that up is he says, with Chris Jones holding out, the Chiefs traded 6th round, blah, blah, blah. So he's ensuing that this is Chris Jones, a Chris Jones play. Which I don't see that at all. I really don't.
Knowing the way, okay, yeah. Neil Farrell's agent is Bus Cook's agency. Bus Cook has been an NFL agent since
he's Favre's agent.
Yeah, he's been an agent in the NFL since they were meeting on the floorboards of Hupmobiles in a dealership in Canton, Ohio, putting the league together. Like this was definitely a, hey, Adam, you mind throwing this at the start of your tweet? Mind mentioning Chris Jones here to build up some hype for my guy?
That's exactly what
That's
that is.
exactly what that is.
This isn't. That's why I thought maybe because this isn't Chris Jones insurance.
No.
I thought, how healthy is how healthy is Tershawn Wharton, and I'm with you. And if they don't think he's gonna, and maybe this is a play where the Chiefs knew that the Raiders are not high on this guy. They can you basically drafted Neil Farrell in the 6th round this year or next year. Like you're getting this guy a year early for 3 years. Because Brett Veach used a lot of capital the last 2 years to move around. So this is not nothing. A 6th round pick is not nothing. Now, is it more towards the lottery pick? Yes, it is. And if it happens 3-4 years in a row, if Nick Jones is that good, or if Keandre Coburn is that good, like Isaiah Pacheco was that good, then I'll start giving a lot of benefit to Brett Veach and his staff and saying, look, Trey Smith is that good. Trying to think of who else was, Watson and Pacheco and all those. Then I'll start saying, this Neil Farrell cat better be good, because they just potentially lost out on a Pacheco, Watson, Smith, Nick Jones type of guy in the 6th round. So this isn't a nothing burger happening for the Chiefs. Do you think Deion Bush and Danny Shelton will re-sign with the Chiefs, or are they over? Because I'm surprised. I had Danny Shelton on my 53.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all did.
I thought he was going to make the team,
but they clearly thought, well, we want to get this Farrell kid, maybe more so than Shelton. But we do know that Danny Shelton did speak to the media in camp, and he said he wants to be here. He wants to be on the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think it could be a practice squad thing, which would make sense. It also could be we're putting someone on IR and you're next. Like we want to put Nick Jones on injured reserve, but we need to put him on the 53 first because we'll get him back mid-season. So when he goes on IR, you're back in. Or maybe that's what they did with Deion Bush.
Well, that's my guess is what they're doing with Bush. I think that Bush's special teams contributions are enough that I was pretty convinced he was going to make the team.
Same.
That was a bigger surprise cut to me even than Shelton was.
Yeah, so if anybody goes on IR before 4:00 today, they're done for the year. They have to make the 53, then go on IR if you want to bring them back.
Correct.
That is what I want to make note is, and that's where you say, hey, Nick Jones makes the 53. He's on the team. Then tomorrow they put him on IR. He's done for potentially up to 6 games. Or up to 4 games, and then you sign Danny Shelton and he's back on the team, or Deion Bush. We know Justin Ross has made the team. Excited for his Hall of Fame career to begin.
And as projected, pretty widely by us and everybody else paying any attention, it will be 7 wide receivers for the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm. According to Sam McDowell, the Chiefs are planning to keep B.J. Thompson, their 5th round pick. Yeah, that's not a surprise. I'm just waiting. Now I want to know what happened to LaMichael Pirine and Matt Bushman. That's what it comes down to me.
Yeah.
It's those 2 guys.
Probably fair to throw Prince in too.
I don't. Yeah. I'll be surprised if he gets picked over Pirine, but
I would too at this point. But
we didn't think that they'd be.
I didn't think Deion Bush and Danny Shelton were getting cut. So
I didn't either.
Another thing worth noting for the K-State contingent that might be listening along, wondering about Echo Boydo. He did not make the initial 53. I would be very surprised if he doesn't end up on the practice squad for the Chiefs or for somebody, but did not make the initial 53. When Deion Bush was announced as a cut, I thought maybe that meant Boydo had made it, but they, again, could add Bush tomorrow after they IR Nick Jones, who I think is going to make the 53 and be on the IR because he'd had a really good camp. And unlike Boydo, they used a draft pick on Jones. And I mean, that is indicative of what a team thinks of a player.
Mm-hmm. We'll get a quick timeout. We will find out where Chris Jones is going to end up. Is he going to end up on the 53, or is he going to end up on the did not report list? We will discuss potentially the ramifications of that next here on 580. We will get to our Chiefs over-unders coming up in the about 10 minutes from now. We will get to Mike Dana and Kadarius Toney. Those will be our Chiefs players for our over-unders today.
Kadarius Toney is the next guy I need to hear Tim Kirkchin say in a Baltimore accent. Kadarius Toney.
Yes.
Tony.
But what do they do with Chris Jones? Do they put him on the I don't know if I've ever seen it be used, did not report list, and potentially could hold out money from him, even if he does report by Tuesday to get his first game check? Do they put him on the 53-man roster? Now, let's say he does hold out and he doesn't play. Okay. What does this do for his legacy for the Chiefs? And the reason I wonder that is he could go down as right now a Chief, like Ring of Honor, no question about it, fan favorite to the very, very end, right? Mm-hmm. Like we're talking one of the best. To not as the level, because Derek Thomas was a level of
right, a Hall of Famer,
but like to like the Neil Smith, type of player. What happens? Because we know that Chiefs fans can be sensitive. When Tony Gonzalez said his comments on Atlanta and says, I love that institution there. I even had a better time there, right? He did it just kind of winging it to feed to the crowd. But Chiefs fans caught wind of that, and I don't even know if Chiefs fans still will. That's what a lot of Chiefs fans think about now with Tony Gonzalez. I am not one of them, but that is what a portion, and it's not 2%, 3%. We're not talking a small portion. There are a lot of Chiefs fans who were jilted by Tony Gonzalez, right?
Yes.
A part of me says, as long as he comes back and sacks the quarterback, people will still be cheering and loving him.
Yes, of course. That's the transactional nature of fandom. You produce for my team and you're my guy. You don't produce for my team and could care less.
But I do wonder how this affects his reputation, his legacy, even if that does happen, because of how this has gone down. Because the one thing that the owners have done so magnificently is get you to cheer for your team under no circumstances. No circumstances. It is
under every circumstance.
Yeah, if Chris Jones doesn't report, it's not a Clark Hunt is cheap. No, it's Chris Jones is greedy. And we all know that. You cheer for the Arrowhead logo. So I wonder if this does get to the point where it is contentious, and even to the point where he gets traded. Let's say the Chiefs trade him. I think his reputation as what Chiefs fans will have, this could be if someone is interested in that. Some people do not care, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't. But because of how this went down, I think Chiefs fans have no issues with Tyreek Hill. I don't think so.
I think they're more annoyed by him and his podcast more than they're annoyed by him. Period.
He delivered a championship.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
His highest level of play won a championship. That's you can forgive a lot.
So
with Tyreek Hill, there has been a lot that has been forgiven by a lot of people.
And Chris Jones has delivered 2 championships. I don't know how this is going to play out, because I've seen so many people on social media and I know social media is a very small portion of it, but who are, their view of Chris Jones has changed.
I think there are levels to it. I think if Chris Jones holds out for an entire year, for example, which for what it's worth, I don't think will happen, or even holds out till mid-season, the longer he doesn't play regular season games, I think the more damage is done in that regard. I think the more a lot of fans will be upset with him. And we know that a bunch are annoyed. We have texters, we have commenters on YouTube who tell us every day for the last few days, like, this, I'm getting tired of this. Like, someone figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if he doesn't play for a prolonged period of time, that is going to probably do some irreparable damage to how people feel about him. I think if he gets traded, it is very much going to be a short-term thing. I think it's like, damn, man, this could have been so much better. Why did you want to leave? But then within the next couple of years, and certainly after he retires, it'll be, things were fine.
You were what does he call himself? The mayor of Sack Nation, president of Sack Nation, whatever it is. That's
comptroller or something.
That's going to be his legacy. I mean, if it doesn't end well, I mean, there have been countless examples in sports history of things maybe not ending well between player and organization, just the nature of the beast. But when you get past that in the moment disappointment, over the long haul, when Chiefs fans think about Chris Jones, they're going to think about Sack Nation, and they're going to think about 2 Lombardis and counting. Maybe we'll see. That's what it's going to be.
I will say this, and it's about one specific sect of Chiefs fans in particular. Well, 2 points here. They kind of dovetail together. One, people will feel differently about Chris Jones because of Patrick Mahomes. And by that, I mean, if he leaves, there are going to be a lot of, just like there are a lot of Chiefs fans who say, Tony Gonzalez, who cares? We have Travis Kelce now. So what about Tony Gonzalez? We're going to win with Patrick Mahomes anyway. I don't care. You want your money? Go play for Houston and make a bunch of money and lose forever. We don't care. We have Patrick Mahomes. Who cares about you? And I say that because I know for a fact there are like thousands upon thousands of Chiefs fans who would co-sign a car loan for Patrick Mahomes if he asked them to. Like, he would sign a high interest unsecured loan for that guy. They're rabid. I will also say, from the social media perspective, I spend a lot of time on the internet, far too much time. It's really a problem. But I have gotten exposed to a lot of different fan bases. And I say this with care and love because Chiefs fans and Kansas State fans have been very good to me since I have been here, which is now exactly 6 years as of today. You've been very good to me. You are nuts. Like, there is no fan base, I would argue, in all of sports at any level that is as different in real life as they are online as Kansas State fans. And I mean that kind of positively. Like, you guys care a lot. You who are also terminally online. You're also insane. Real life, nice conversations, talk ball, joke back and forth, friendly rivalry stuff. Online, like, I got to get an unlisted phone number. Like, I'm scared. I'm a little worried. A lot of K-State fans are also Chiefs fans. Okay? There's a lot of overlap.
Chiefs fans will go to the...
Y'all are nuts. Y'all are insane.
To the depths on backing Patrick Mahomes on the internet to a guy in Ohio who you don't even know.
Yes,
it's a little
scary.
It's a little thing called Midwestern inferiority complex,
and
it afflicts fan bases in every market.
Oh yeah,
and state that is the size of Kansas City and the state of Kansas. Like you see it everywhere.
The Bengals are bad too.
Yes,
the Bengals
they are.
Big inferiority. Big time inferiority.
I would agree. They're in the same boat. And I mean this again. It's a positive thing. I love passion. I love when people are passionate about things that they care about. We need more of that. There's too much malaise these days. We need more people who are passionate and who care about things. So all of that to say, there will be a segment of this population of Chiefs fans that never get over this and are weird about it.
They'll think, instead of thinking, because I always say, I say this, whatever you do last for your organization is kind of how people remember you. It's the same thing in baseball back when the Mitchell Report came out. A lot of people were on the Mitchell Report. Andy Pettit was on the Mitchell Report. Roger Clemens on the Mitchell Report, right? Yeah. Who is more, well-known and thinks of as a good guy right now?
Well, Pettit, but Clemens also did some other stuff too.
Well, the main thing is same thing with Tiger Woods. If Barry Bonds, the last thing people think about Barry Bonds is, well, he didn't play. He tried to, right? But, he was blacklisted or whatever you want to call it, if you can change the perspective of yourself after something occurred, then that's how you're going to be. Like right now, the last thing that people remember Tony Gonzalez for is not catching passes. That's what he said. The last thing, if Chris Jones does get traded or, doesn't play well, the last thing you're going to think about is this holdout.
But it's a lot easier to mend fences when you've got Super Bowl rings than when not. By the way, we got some breaking Chiefs news.
Yes,
we do.
They have waived quarterback Chris Oladokun and quarterback Shane Buechele.
Yeah, he got waived.
I'm surprised by that. I imagine he will be on the practice squad then.
And if he gets picked up, are somebody picking up Shane Buechele?
I personally, if I was running a team, wouldn't pick up a guy who made a roster last year and got cut this year, but that's just me.
So right now, the best I can do is 50 out of 53 because I had Shane Buechele, Deion Bush, and Danny Shelton all on my 53-man roster. So I am now, the best I can do is 50 out of 53. I'm
very surprised. We got some action on the YouTube comments too that are surprised by that Buechele move. Yeah. It really seemed like they were going to keep him.
Yeah.
On the 53. Well, maybe Well, I don't know who would get that extra spot, but
I think P. Ryan and Bushman are feeling.
I was
going to
say maybe both a fourth running back and a fourth tight end.
Yeah. Wow.
Or an extra defensive lineman.
Yeah, maybe that's the spot for Farrell.
I see. I'm not surprised that Gabbert's the backup.
No, not at all.
Andy Reid, when Gabbert was signed, immediately he became the backup.
Right.
Andy Reid wants a backup in there to just don't drown, right? And the interception to Thornhill, which, man, that stinks. Juan Thornhill doing a former teammate dirty. You can't do that, right? Remember that terrible pass that I mentioned in game number 1, where he just said, "Oh, there's a guy, I'm just going to throw it," right? Mm-hmm. You can't be doing that in Andy Reid as a backup. Like, that is one thing you cannot do. So I am not surprised that Gabbert is the backup. I just thought that 2 years in a row, they're not going to keep Shane Buechele on the 53 and take up a roster spot.
Yeah, it's weird you would do it once, but not the second time. But they saw all they needed to see, I guess.
Yep. Coming up next, we'll do a little Chiefs over-unders. Kadarius Toney and Mike Dana coming up next here on 580 Sports Talk. We will talk all things Chiefs and their roster with our good friend Jesse Newell from the Kansas City Star coming up at 3:30.
I haven't talked to Jesse in so long.
Yeah, no kidding.
He's a good friend. Good friend.
He's a good friend. No, he's been a good friend of mine.
I knew you guys were going to do that. I should have cut your mics.
He doesn't do KU anymore, but can we play? Well, I don't know if we still have Jesse's old open. I don't know if we still have it.
I'll dig.
Hey, something has changed.
I was going to say, I haven't.
Yeah, we got it.
I haven't regularly spoken to Jesse since, like, every KU game was kind of like a matter of life or death for me on the football. Like, now that the team is good, we're talking about football here. Like, and it's not kind of a, do we need to call a medical professional every Tuesday at 4:30? Like, I feel like we could have a really adult conversation. And I don't have to be like, why are we playing Peyton Bender?
Speaking of drops, I don't know if we still have. Do we still have push or not push? What is it? But Matchbox 20?
No, it's Third Eye Blind.
Third Eye Blind.
Jumper.
Jumper.
Oh, yeah, it's in there. It's definitely in there.
Jumper by Third Eye Blind. Push by Matchbox 20. Completely different song. But I always get those two bands confused. They're the same group. Matchbox 20 and Third Eye Blind. You'll never convince me otherwise. I've been getting them confused for 25 years, and I will never
Rob
stop.
Thomas
I will never
slander right now.
Yeah, no one from Third Eye Blind ever did Smooth.
Yeah.
With
Third Eye
Carlos
Blind guy
Santana.
was a jerk, kind of a renowned jerk. in
Really?
pop music circles. Yeah, the Eve 6 guy made his name on Twitter by like bullying the Third Eye Blind guy, basically telling stories out of school about him.
Dan, knowing early 2000s rock.
This has been
Rock
talking
Discord.
late 90s alt rock. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll tell Jesse, like, hey, Lance Leipold is like getting like medication. Like I'm good now. I took the little white pill was Andel Kotelnicki's playbook.
We will we'll get to that coming up in the 3 o'clock hour. We got Random Question Tuesday coming up. But it's time though for our Chiefs over unders.
Yeah.
Let's go with Kadarius Toney. Over under 700 yards for Kadarius Toney.
Jake bullied me into picking a wide receiver over, so I'll take Toney as my over for a wide receiver.
We should probably start with the games played over under because I think that's going to inform what we think about Tony's production.
We can start
right?
that. Games played over under 13.5. So basically this is
he going to miss a month?
No. Will he go on IR?
I don't know. They're talking like he won't.
I'm not talking about the beginning of the year. I'm talking about at any point in time of the year. Is he going on IR? He went on IR last year.
What if he's their pitch count guy at wide receiver like Jerick McKinnon was at running back, and they use him sparingly throughout the regular season, then really rev him up in December and January? What if he's their pitch count guy instead of, because like going into the year, if he had a clean bill of health coming into the season, I would say sky's the limit. Like I would almost say, like not only over 700 yards, you could give me over under 1,000, and I'd have to think about it because they really like him.
Yep.
They really want to use him. They can be creative about how they use him. He's explosive. He's good in the open field. He was really promising. Like he picked up the offense like right away.
Yep.
I think there's a lot there with Kadarius Toney. The question is just how many snaps? What are we really getting out of Kadarius Toney? Are we getting a number one wide receiver because all the indications all off seasons were that's how they viewed him? Or are we getting a change of pace weapon? Like, is his usage pattern going to be closer to McCole Hardman than like Juju or Tyreek?
Alrighty, I'm an emotional hedge this joint, and I'm going to take the under of 13.5. If it was 14.5, I would hammer the under. But he 14, is he going to miss? Is he going to play 13 games? Is he going to miss 4 games? I'm going to take the under. I'm going to need to see it to believe it in this situation. So I'm going full Brendan Dorzinski right now, and I'm taking the under on this one. I'm going to take the under on 13.5. I need you. I'm going to need to see that pair of aces you got in your hand. We're going through the whole entire turn and river, and show me your hand.
Texas Hold'em. Poker face, visor. I don't play poker. The only river I know is Good Charlotte.
Lizard eye sunglasses.
By the way, if he played 13 games, so let's say he goes on a short-term IR stint at some point and he misses the minimum 4 games, he would have to have 54 yards a game to break 700. Can he do that?
Still could do that.
I think he could.
It's possible.
I like the over 5.5 total touchdowns.
Yeah,
If that's
I would
what
take
you're
the
giving
over on
me,
that.
I would take the over there because I think he is a touchdown maker. I think we saw that in his short time with the
one
Chiefs.
called back too on the
The snow globe play.
That's such a BS call too on Creed Humphrey.
Yeah, it sucked. Humphrey didn't need to do that though. Is the problem?
Wouldn't have hold anyways. Ref, no fun, losers.
Yeah, seriously. It's week 18. Keep the flag in your pocket.
Gotta take.
Wow,
that.
I don't think they'll ever recover.
No, never.
Yeah, I would take the over there too. I agree. That's just
Like, even
that's
if,
kind of what he does.
yeah. Even if I'm not 100% sure
What
what his workload is going to
What
look
if I
like.
said just receiving touchdowns?
Yeah, I would be bold and take the over there.
Okay.
It's an interesting
I
thought.
said total touchdowns here. We're talking, I don't think he's going to be doing a bunch of punt returning.
No.
Because now that he hurt himself, it's kind of like the Tyreek Hill deal.
Yeah.
They don't want to bring him back, even though he does have the record for longest punt return in Super Bowl history, which is still wild to say.
There is a way you can get him involved in the running game, though, in those situations. So, total touchdowns for sure. I would be bold and take the over with receiving touchdowns, too. I was going to say, your point about some kind of pitch count, especially earlier in the year, I wonder if you could do that and still play him every game and play him plenty every game. What if he, and I know this is probably not going to happen, what if you just used him inside the 40? Like goal line to plus 40, like you're not using Kadarius Toney, but when you get more into scoring range, that's when you use Kadarius Toney. And you expand the role as time goes on. But that might be one way to manage snaps in an effective way.
Wide receiver version Jerome Bettis at the end of his career.
Kind of.
So this was the usage pattern for Toney when they acquired him last year. First game with the team, first time out against Tennessee, 9 snaps, they threw it to him twice. Next game, 28 snaps, threw it to him 5 times, handed it to him twice. He gained 90 yards of total offense in that game.
That game, everybody's like, oh my gosh, we got to do.
Mm-hmm.
He got hurt against the Chargers, but in 14 snaps, they gave him the ball. They threw it to him once, handed it to him once. 5 snaps against Houston, they threw it to him once and handed it to him twice. So 3 of the 5 snaps, he had the ball. Against the Seahawks, 16 snaps, 4 targets, 2 targets, 2 rushes. 19 snaps against Denver, 4 receptions on 4 targets and 2 rushes. So 6 touches on 19 snaps. Then 18 snaps against the Raiders, and he got 2 targets and 3 rushes. So 5 of 18 there, plus a punt return.
And we know what he did in the Super Bowl.
So if he's on a pitch count, he's still going to touch the ball like a lot relative to that. So like when he's on the field, he's a threat to get the ball.
All righty, let's go with Mike Dana. Over under 4.5 sacks. His career high last year, 5.
I'm going under. I'm going to go under.
4.5 feels about right. That's a good number to set it at. Probably under. I mean, you never bet. Hard to bet on a guy to get over a career high, especially if they're a rotational player.
Tie his career high.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you go over.
That'd be 5.5.
Yes.
I'm going to take the over because he's going to play a lot in the first 6 games. There's no Chris Jones isn't going to be 100%. No Amenahu. I think Dan is going to play more than Felix Anudike-Uzomah. So I'm going to take the over. I think Dan is going to play a lot in the first 6 weeks. And I think the Chiefs kind of like him. So I'm going to take the over. I think he'll wiggle his way to 5 sacks.
How shocked were you that Joshua Kando got cut today?
That's a cut we didn't mention in the first segment. Can also mention that Deneric Prince, multiple reports,
Deneric
Prince has been waived.
I'm not surprised at all that Joshua Kando got cut. Come on now.
They've won 2 Super Bowls in recent years, so you can live with missing on a 4th round pick. That is second worst pick of the Veach era.
Behind Speaks?
Behind Speaks. Like, dude, he wasn't even good in college, and you spent a 4th round pick on him.
4th round picks are not quite lottery, but not quite you gotta hit.
Those are your glue guys. Like, those should be
those
core
like
special
rotational
teams,
guys.
rotational.
You should actually get like a little bit out of it. They never got anything out of him.
Sacks are volatile, but you probably shouldn't draft a guy who, as a 22-year-old college player, had 0 sacks. Just a tip.
It's very clear the Chiefs kind of have a thing for like gigantic defensive ends whose production doesn't match like what their height and weight say, like their physical traits.
The perfect example of that, Tano Capaccio, according to Chris Jones. I will never forget that.
They worked together for 4 years and had no idea how to pronounce
It's a hard name.
No, he's your
when you work
teammate.
with you know how to say my name.
It's a hard name.
But
but we
Tano Capaccio. He pronounced the K.
I think that
they worked together.
He may have been doing a bit. Would you put it
Nah,
past Chris Jones?
No, I would not put it past him. No, definitely not.
I think he legitimately didn't know because he just said, to know capacity. He stumbled. I'm hoping. I hope it's a bit. I really do. Over under 15 pressures for Mike Dana.
Over.
He had 16 last year, 15 the year before.
Yeah, go over.
No.
So, yeah, I'm with you. I think Dana's going to do okay. I do. We will find out a little bit more on roster cuts coming up. We'll go around the NFL, talk about some cuts, some trades, everything happening today. We got Random Question Tuesday, and Brendan will get to talk to Jesse Newell and reminisce about the good old days. That'll be coming up in the 3
Jesse,
o'clock
I'm not
hour.
on the brink. How cool is that?
I know, he gets to cover a good team. Coming up next, we got all that here on 580 Sports Talk. 580 Sports Talk, hour number 2 on this cut down day for the NFL. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you stopping by. Jake LeBon along with Brandon Dorzinski, Dan Lucero on this Tuesday afternoon. We'll talk with Jesse Newell coming up here in just a little bit. Got Random Question Tuesday. Michael Swain will talk a little KU. We got Jayhawks and Bears. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
On Friday night. That's right. When you think of Friday Night Lights, you think of the Kansas Jayhawks and the Missouri State Bears.
Think of David Booth, Kansas Memorial Stadium.
Yep. So we got a lot to get to coming up, but you can let us know your thoughts. Hit us up on our text line, 785-272-9429. You can also hit us up on our YouTube page. Go to youtube.com and go to 580 Sports Talk. Hit the subscribe button. Very, very simple. We need to give away some tickets right now, and here's how we are going to do it. The first person to text in 785-272-9429. It's very simple. 785-272-9429. If you want a family 4-pack of NASCAR Xfinity tickets, that is a 4-pack. This is for Saturday, September 9th at the Kansas Speedway. This is not the series race on Sunday. This is the Saturday race, but a 4-pack of tickets to the NASCAR Xfinity race on Saturday. If you've never gone to one of these and you ain't got nothing going on, you need to go. A NASCAR race is unlike anything you've ever experienced. It really is. I remember the very first time I went, and it completely changed my mind on the entire sport of turning left. It really did. So if you want Xfinity tickets, family 4-pack, 785-272-9429. Hit us up and text us, and we will get you those tickets. Very simple, very easy.
Man. Sorry, not related to that. Text in, go win the tickets. 2 different KU players got cut by the Bengals today. Tragic. Both Kwame Lassiter and Hakeem Adeniji. Yeah. Kwame made the practice squad last year. I wouldn't be surprised if he did again.
Playoff starting offensive lineman.
That is Super Bowl starting offensive lineman Hakeem Adeniji. Yeah.
So it is cut down day. Here is what we know have been cut. Dan has gone through the Twitterverse, the Xverse.
No, it's
Twitterverse.
It will never not be Twitter to me.
Okay.
Elon's not paying me.
It's still Twitter on my phone. I haven't updated the app on my phone in like 4 months.
Yeah.
Oh, mine updated automatically.
You shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I turn off. I don't have automatic updates on.
Oh, I don't care.
So I haven't updated it. Mine's still a little Bluebird.
No, it's an X Bluebird. Don't give a what. Don't really care. Whatever. Chiefs have cut Shane Buechele. Shane Buechele got cut.
Yeah.
Chris Oladokun, Daniel Wise, Deneric Prince, Deion Bush, Danny Shelton, Josh Kando, Echo Boydo, Anthony Cook, Cole Christensen, Khalif
Halasi,
LaMichael Pirine, and now Austin Ryder. They are keeping what we've known, Justin Ross, along with 6 other wide receivers, BJ Thompson, the draft pick.
Was there any doubt that Thompson was going to be kept?
Draft picks normally get at least. I mean,
Yeah,
Joshua Kando was kept for 2 years.
Yeah, 5th round pick. I didn't expect him to be cut, but it was one of the early names that that was reported, hey, this guy has made the team. So if there was any doubt, and we had kind of talked yesterday, you and I, Brendan, that there was a possibility they might try to slip him to the practice squad and keep like a Malik Herring or a Josh Kando. But clearly, when Kando was cut, the writing was on the wall. Thompson was going to make the team.
So of the ones here, of the 53, Shane Buechele being cut is a surprise. Deion Bush being cut is a surprise. Danny Shelton being cut is a surprise. because they cut Shane Buechele, I thought LaMichael Pirine was going to make the team. So he is on the waiver wire now. Anybody can pick up LaMichael Pirine.
So do you think that means 3 backs, or did a surprise like Jerry and Ely make the team, or do you just think it's going to be Pacheco, Clyde, and McKinnon?
I think it's those 3, and they're going to hope that Pirine makes it through.
I think that also bodes pretty well for Pacheco. We haven't seen him obviously in preseason, but if
he did have that 1 carry,
but if there were any concerns about him, you might think they would have been more inclined to keep 4 backs.
So I thought with Buechele being cut, that Pirine would take his spot. We know that Dion Bush, I'm surprised. That might even be the biggest surprise is Bush being cut. But with the addition of your new defensive tackle that the Chiefs traded for, and that's kind of the bigger news in all of this. The Chiefs traded a 6th-round pick for Neil Farrell of the Raiders. So with Shelton being cut, that's kind of the replacement for, Neil Farrell replaces Danny Shelton. So who are they keeping that we were not expecting? Is Chris Jones just going to be on the 53 and they're not going to do the whole 53 man or did not report type of deal?
I think they're going to keep him on the 53. Sign of good faith more than anything else, unless they're at total loggerheads, which is possible. But I think that if there are still ongoing negotiations, he's going to be on the 53. Cam Jones is a surprise. I don't think we've uttered that name on these airwaves throughout the preseason. But what we have talked about is if you're keeping 7 wide receivers, typically when you have 7 wide receivers, some of those guys are special teams guys. And the Chiefs have tried to work those guys in, particularly Rashee Rice and Justin Ross, on special teams. But Cam Jones feels like a special teams addition. And maybe if you're going to have a receiver room with none of those guys as core special teamers, you have to have those core special teamers at other positions. And maybe that's why they only keep 3 running backs. Maybe that's why you only keep 2 quarterbacks. You can have another
and that's
core
why I'm
special
surprised
teamer.
Dion Bush, didn't make the team.
I still think my gut tells me they're going to add him back when they IR Nick Jones. That's what my gut says.
I wonder if one of the guys who's going to get one of the so-called unexpectedly open spots, I wonder if they keep an extra defensive lineman. Even if you're keeping Chris Jones on the 53, if for nothing more than a sign of good faith, which Dan just mentioned and brought up yesterday on the show too, which I think is totally fair. I wonder if you keep Malik Herring, or I wonder if you end up keeping, obviously you're not going to keep Shelton because you already waived him, but if you end up keeping somebody else along that line to just try to get as many pressure generating guys as you can get. I would love for it to be Herring. I've been on that bandwagon for a couple of years now. But maybe it is someone there so you can just try to make up for that lack of Chris Jones as much as possible until he comes back.
I think Bushman is now a lock. I don't see how you can cut Bushman and keep just 3 tight ends. I think the Bushman is going to be there.
I think so too.
The other question, and you brought up, Joshua Kando, draft pick, all that kind of stuff. We know they're keeping 9 offensive linemen, and I know of 8 that they're keeping. I will be very surprised if the 8 are not Donovan Smith, Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, Juwan Taylor, Wanye Morris, Nick Allegretti. Let me rephrase that. 7. They're keeping those 7. Do they keep Kennard? Do they keep Niang? Do they keep Prince Tega Winogo? Because one of those guys is not making it. And if they don't keep Niang, he was a 3rd-round pick that just never developed. And injuries and didn't play in COVID,
conditioning
and just everything. Yeah. But we know that Allegretti and Morris are going to join the top 5. Well, that gives you 7. So that leaves really with 3 since they cut Cole Christensen and Austin Ryder now.
Now, Christian was a linebacker, so.
Or who am I thinking of? That's an O lineman that they
Caliendo, maybe.
Maybe that's it. Yes.
We haven't heard one way or another on him.
But Niang or Prince Tego Winogo, I would think that they'll keep Kennard, even though he's been a end of the roster. Is he going to make it? Is he not? That's really the only questions on who they're going to keep with the guys that they have already decided to, or at least reported on, cut and move on. I don't see them keeping all of them, but you maybe could, because you're not keeping Dion Bush, you're not keeping a third running back, and you're not, or a fourth running back, and you're not keeping a third quarterback.
In peak Chiefs fashion, they are one of the last teams, I think, to put out their list of full cuts. If Andy Reid's not going to show up on time to a press conference, I don't know why I would have expected them to be on time to announce this at 3.
Kendall Blanton has been cut, Kansas City kid. He was on the practice squad a little bit last year at tight end. That's not a surprise.
No,
but that's the latest social media cut, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, none of these are, like we talked about yesterday, like none of this is overwhelmingly shocking. Like, I mean, the biggest one to me would be Shelton or Bush, but outside of that, I mean, there's not really a whole lot in the way of like, wow, I can't believe this guy made it or didn't make it. Like, there hasn't really been any of that, especially because Cam Jones, I mean, we were talking about the severe lack of Dave Tobe guys. Mm-hmm. That certainly would fit that bill. Elsewhere around the league, the big news, or I guess lack of news, is that Jonathan Taylor is not going anywhere. He is going to stay with the Colts, at least for now.
Why stay on the Colts? He's going to stay on the PUP list.
Well, he's going to stay on the PUP. Yeah, he's not going to play.
So, yeah, first 4 games, he will at least have to sit. Like, if they, I forget who pointed this out on Twitter, but if the Colts were really saying, we won't do this for less than a first-round pick, then they weren't ever serious about trading him.
Yeah, they're very dumb.
I think that is true. I think that is... I'm excited about Anthony Richardson. I don't think Shane Steichen was a bad hire as a head coach, but I think in a lot of ways they're as poorly run an organization as exists in the National Football League.
Well, it's hard when your owner is A, a meddler, which is already difficult enough, and B, insane. Like that's an overused word. Things like crazy or insane, or like those are all intense adjectives that we as a society overuse. No, I mean, Jim Irsay is insane. Truly nuts. And
he makes some questionable decisions, yes.
Yeah, the fact that he is meddling so much in this, like I think Chris Ballard is a severely overrated general manager. Like I genuinely think he's probably in the bottom third of general managers in the NFL. And he gets all this hype because he worked for some really good Chiefs teams, but like, well, they've been awful for years and they're still awful. But I think there's also a lot of meddling that goes on above his head that kind of ties his hands.
Yeah.
So when I saw tweets today that said things like, Chris Ballard never thought he found anything good enough, I think that means Jim Irsay didn't see anything he found good enough.
You got to do what your boss says.
Yeah.
So those are the updates. A little bit more local. You mentioned a couple KU guys got cut. Mentioned a couple Washburn guys. Corey Ballantyne. I thought he was going to make the Packers roster, but they are releasing Corey Ballantyne.
You have limited spots when you keep 11 offensive linemen. It's hard to fit the extra corner on there. I think Corey, assuming he does not get a 53-man invite from another team, I assume he is a practice squad guy. That speed is not common. Like, even if he has taken his lumps in the NFL, that speed is different. Plus, he can play special teams.
Yeah, I think he'll end up.
I think he'll be on the practice squad.
He'll still be playing, obviously. Trying to find out if Kyle Hinton, offensive lineman for the Vikings, if his name, because he's been on the practice squad for the Vikings. after being drafted. To be determined on that. I haven't seen anything on Kyle Hinton, the Washburn big offensive lineman, who, fun fact, in his final game scored a touchdown and then spiked it really hard. That was awesome. Throw back to the backup left tackle, or not backup left tackle, to the left tackle, and he goes in for the score.
Do you remember when we talked to Kyle? I think we spoke to him twice right before the draft that year, and he was telling us about being back home in Arizona, working out for the draft, and he was just like putting all the random like sporting goods equipment and like 2x4s and metal pipes and whatnot in his house all together as like his own little home gym. He was just lifting all of it.
That dude, yeah, he was an incredible athlete. Vertical jump of like 30.
He is, for what it's worth, not with the Vikings, but he's with the Falcons. But
are you sure?
Yes. He signed a reserve future contract with the Atlanta Falcons on January 18th. So he has actually not been with the Vikings for pretty much this whole calendar year. He was waived before last season, added to the practice squad, and then from there he signed a futures contract.
So he's with the...
So if you were looking specifically for Vikings cuts, you wouldn't have found him. I don't see anything from him with regard to the Falcons either.
That's because he's with the Vikings.
He's not.
I'm literally... Oh, let's see. They didn't give me the year. Okay, you're right.
The headline of his Wikipedia page is an American football guard for the
I looked at
Falcons.
the date. It said August 24th, and I thought that was, yeah. So
gotcha.
Hopefully he makes the Falcons then.
I hope he does.
That would be great.
I hope he does. Yeah, I'm not sure there were any. The Patriots cut my guy Bailey Zappi.
And they cut Malik Cunningham. They have one quarterback on the roster right now.
Shane Buechele. Broncos wide receiver Jerry Jeudy will start the season on short-term IR.
See, I thought that he wasn't going to. I thought Sean Payton said no.
No, this is according to Mike Florio.
George Payton told James Palmer and other reporters that he will.
I am at a point where I don't really feel the need to trust anything that Sean Payton says publicly. I don't really feel like that's anything we need at this point. That is going to crash and burn spectacularly.
The more I hear about it, and I think that, I think that Sean Payton is just Mike McCarthy with a better reputation. That when you divorce coach from Hall of Fame, all everything quarterback, the genius label is grossly misapplied.
As many issues as I have with Mike McCarthy, what makes him worse than Sean Payton?
I think they're about the same.
Hall of Fame quarterback for vast majority of their career as a head coach. Won Super Bowl.
A lot of underachieving in the postseason.
I know. Taysom Hill. He got Taysom Hill to...
That's right. Sean Payton meddled with the front office more and got $140 million for a 30-year-old player without a position.
Also got suspended for a year.
Oh, yeah. That's
because he hired a scumbag as his defensive coordinator.
That would be Greg.
Whereas Mike McCarthy just is kind of a dope.
Doesn't know how to do end of game situations.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even more. I mean, he's just I wouldn't exactly be jacked up if I play for Mike McCarthy. I wouldn't be like, yeah, let's attack life.
I don't think Mike McCarthy is a bad coach, but I certainly think that the idea that he was some kind of genius because he won with Aaron Rodgers, prime Aaron Rodgers, was not quite accurate. And I think the same about Sean Payton as it pertains to his work with Drew Brees, who was
already good.
Always going to be Drew Brees, no matter who was calling the plays.
I think we're going to find out a lot with a lot of people with the Broncos this year, because it might be a little bit of Sean Payton. It might be a little bit of Russell Wilson. I really do wonder that.
Will you be rooting for the Chicago Bears this year? Their backup quarterback officially won the job is an undrafted Division II rookie, Tyson Bagent.
Is he the kid from
Was it Shippensburg?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whose
The-
dad is like a 73-time world champion arm wrestler.
Yeah, arm wrestling guy.
Yeah. No, Tyson Badgett rules. He should have been drafted. He
Yeah.
beat out Nathan Peterman and PJ Walker, 2 longtime backups, to be the backup for the Bears.
No,
That's pretty sick.
No, I read about that. His arm, like he had a chance, like West Virginia, like Neil Brown tried to get him to transfer from Shippensburg to
I think
West
it was
Virginia.
Shippensburg.
And he didn't do it. He stayed at the Division II level.
Yeah, it came Shepherd University, not Shippensburg, Shepherd, D2 in West Virginia.
Yep.
But yeah, the story essentially goes that he and his dad talked about it, and Neil Brown wanted him, along with a couple other schools.
Yeah, Marshall, I think, wanted him.
And they said, you know what? Nah, screw you. You didn't want me 4 years ago. You don't get me now.
Yep.
Which is probably insane. Like that's probably not the right way to handle that. But it worked. Like he is going to be their backup quarterback.
That's pretty
And
wild.
when Justin Fields probably gets hurt because he gets hit more than any other quarterback in the league this year, Badgett's going to come in and play as a rookie.
I hope he destroys the Packers.
What the hell is wrong with you, man? What the hell?
I'm D2
What did I
rep.
do?
D2 rep. No, I'm just messing with you. I'm just messing with you. Coming up next, but I do want him to do well.
No, it's super cool.
Just not against the Packers. How
All
about
right,
that? I hope
thank
he
you.
destroys the Lions and the Vikings.
Thank you.
There we go. Coming up next, Random Question Tuesday here on 580. Random Question Tuesday today. All right, here's mine. Give me a specific location that just has terrific water. I mean, we are talking excellent H2O. I was at a local establishment for lunch today, and I ordered water, and damn, they just bring it with their water. It's so good.
Okay. All right. So this is drinking water.
Yes.
I thought you meant like the bluest beach you've ever been to.
No.
Okay. All right.
No.
That changes things.
Yeah.
I was going to say that sounds like a question meant just to bully me for having gone to Europe.
Well, I've gone to some nice places too, so I can't really say that either. No, like drinking water, like just it's good. You know it.
I got to be completely honest with you,
Nothing,
Jake.
huh?
Nothing. Like first of all, I don't drink water a lot. Like I drink water at work. You know what has good water? Our water cooler outside this studio.
Okay,
I think
that's
that has good water.
Okay.
And I drink water during the show. But like if I go to a restaurant, like I'm usually, if we're going out to eat, that's like something nice. So I'm gonna get like a soda or a strawberry lemonade or a Modelo or a margarita or something like that.
No, I just had a They have fire water there.
As long as they don't serve
Not
Dasani,
fire
I'm
water.
good.
Not fire water, like awesome, delicious water. Like I even got one to go. I got a water to go because their water is so good.
That's pretty funny.
They don't-
Where'd you go?
I can't. They're not paying me, so I ain't gonna mention it.
Fair enough.
This is an NIL deal right now. You want to get on the airways? You got to pony up some cash.
Hey, reach out. We'll put you on the air. Send us some water. See how it is. Here's my question. On the first weekend of November, my wife is going to be gone for, I think she's gone for 5 days. She's going on a trip with her sister. So I'm going to be wide open that weekend. And I'm like, damn, I should go do something fun too. The Packers are playing at home at Lambeau Field against the Rams that Sunday. Also that Sunday, Metallica is playing the back half of their 2 shows in St. Louis. Which should I go to?
All right, Metallica or
The Green Bay Packers.
have you ever seen Metallica?
I did. 2015 Lollapalooza. I did see them.
Okay, so there's not the go see what you've already seen.
I have seen both. If you were to ask me, like, what are the 3 things you love in life more than anything, I would say my wife, my dog, and the Green Bay Packers. But Metallica might still be in the top 5.
Where's the Metallica show? Are they at Scott Trade Center? Or?
Yeah, they're at the Dome in America Center.
Oh no, they're at the
they're
Dome.
at the Dome. I don't know how. Like, I went to a football game at the Dome this spring. I don't know how they're going to fit their whole like mega setup in there.
What
It's
is the
going to be very
acoustics
odd.
like at the Dome?
It can't be good. They cannot be good.
Like, I'd almost rather see Metallica do an arena show than a stadium show.
Yeah.
Or a dome show.
It'd be loud in there.
It'd
Like
be
an
loud as
outdoor
hell.
stadium. Like I'd see Metallica at like Bill Snyder Family Stadium or something like that. That's outdoors.
That'd be sick at a college football stadium. That
Yes.
would rule. And I thought about going to see them in Chicago next summer, but also like I'm open that weekend. My wife's not home, so I have nothing to do. I will sit on the couch in my underwear, like eating Oreos all day. Like I might as well go do something fun. And I've seen both. I've been to Lambeau,
What game would it be?
Rams, so it's a winnable game.
Yeah.
I also need a reparative Jordan Love experience because the only other time I've seen him play
I think
was his first career start against the Chiefs,
All right,
and it did not go.
I'm going to tell you that, and I'm going to tell you to go to the Packers game, and here's the reason why. Did you have fun at Metallica?
Yeah.
Okay, they're older Metallica now. Are they as good?
Yeah.
Well, you don't know.
Do they still play the old stuff, or are they giving you a lot of
the tour they're on
the
now?
72 seasons?
They're playing 2 shows in every city with 2 totally different set lists, so you don't know what you're gonna get,
Ooh.
except that you know it's not what was played the first night.
I think I go Packers.
Yeah, I think I'd probably go to the football game too. I think I don't know. I would say you run into weirder people at Metallica, but Packers fans wear cheese on their heads.
Yeah, a lot of like overalls in the summertime. Yeah. I was gonna try to see if I could fly from Green Bay to St. Louis and go to a noon football game and then still hit a 7:00 concert. I'm pretty sure Pantera is opening for them too, and like,
Problematic. Great band, one of my favorites.
Yeah.
but problematic.
yeah, issues. You get the real weirdos for that one. I do love Pantera though. I'm going to try to make them both happen. I will also be broke. I'm going to need an advance on my November paychecks.
Yeah, put that out there on the air. Now it lives in the public domain.
Yeah. All right, Dan, what do you got?
What is your favorite shirt? What is the shirt that you would put on that is the most comfortable, the coolest looking, your favorite design? What is like your go-to like shirt?
Okay. It's not a shirt, it's a hoodie. Can I say
Yes,
that?
absolutely. If you want to give me a go-to hoodie, that's great too.
It is a go-to hoodie that I stole from my friend in college in 2005. I still have it. I call it Old Faithful. I've worn it so much that the elbows have faded, and my wife was going to throw it away. And I said, you cannot throw that away.
What's on the hoodie?
It is back in my college days. It is a skateboard brand that you guys would make fun of me for, Matix. I love it. It's my favorite hoodie. So much so that my best friend, when he came to visit me like 2 years ago, took it, went home, patched up the elbows for me, and then gave it to me later.
Wow, how nice.
It is in my house. And my wife, if she could just eliminate one thing from my life, it would be this hoodie.
Why does she hate it so much?
She just thinks it's the stupidest thing. It's so comfortable. I love it.
I would say for me, the coolest shirt I own by far is the one that has a picture of Charles Barkley with Nirvana from Saturday Night Live.
You wear that.
And
yes.
it says Charles Barkley in the Nirvana font.
Yeah.
Yes, great shirt.
It's an incredible shirt.
Yeah.
In terms of like my old faithful, I've got a KU crew neck, a Champion brand crew neck that I got my freshman year.
Yeah.
I love it. I try not to wear it
You
too
are
much because I love
anti-hoodie,
it.
more so crew neck.
I have a sick KU hoodie. Shout out to Home Field. Call us up. We'll put you on the air. That's super comfortable.
Okay.
But that crew neck, oh, I love it.
My old reliable is a Rockies hoodie that I got around the 2007 World Series and that I still wear, that still fits me great. I survived a car accident in that hoodie. That hoodie rules. I love it so much. It's comfortable. It is my warmest bit of clothing, so it keeps me warm on really cold days. My coolest t-shirt is one I'm wearing today, my Golfing with the Gwins shirt.
That does rule.
Youngstown State Golfing, got a golfing penguin. I love the design.
That's a good one. Coming up next, we're going to talk with Jesse Newell on all things Chiefs. We will preview the 4 Texas schools and the rest of the Big 12.
We're doing the also rans
We're
today.
doing the also rants. Okay. We're going to do the also rants today and not the good schools. Oklahoma State, West Virginia, Iowa State, and Baylor coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. We'll talk a little KU with Michael Swain. But right now, we are going to talk to our good friend on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits phone line is Jesse Newell of the Kansas City Star. You can follow him on Twitter at Jesse Newell. Jesse's one of the best that does it, and we love him. And Brendan is now excited, Jesse, to talk to you not about bad KU football, but good Chiefs football. He's very excited, Jesse.
Well, yeah, Jesse, I was just thinking earlier, like, I haven't gotten to talk to you in quite a long time, certainly in a professional capacity, and I'm better now. Like, my therapy was Lance Leipold, like, learning how, or like coming in and being able to run a football team competently. So I'm not like on the brink every single time we talk now. I'm in a much better spot than the last time we spoke.
I think this is the exact time of year where I would come on here and tell you to not bet the over on KU football, over on the win total.
We'd play jumper by Third Eye Blind and go from there.
Yeah. And I would say, don't do that. And you go, well, I already did. And I go, okay, well, hope you weren't counting on that money. And then they'd go like 2-10. So yeah, it was a good relationship we had about August 29th every single year, because this was the time where I gave you information you didn't want to hear, and normally, unfortunately for KU football, I was pretty close to right.
But we're in a better place now. Everyone is in a better place now. I am not on the brink every Saturday for 3 hours, well, all day, really, frankly. But so we're all better now. We're in a much healthier spot now, Jesse.
It's good. It's good. Yeah, and talking about the Chiefs football is a little bit different than talking about KU football. But again, all it took was me to leave the beat, and KU found itself a successful football program. So maybe they should have made efforts to do that a little bit earlier.
Well, Jesse, it wasn't you, because you've now joined the Chiefs beat last year, and they won a Super Bowl. So it wasn't you, my friend.
Yeah,
it's not you.
Yeah, KU basketball figured out a way too. So I don't know what it was. Something in the soup over there. I don't know, but yeah, Lance Leipold's got things going, and it is such a different world. I mean, I was just thinking earlier this offseason where preseason offensive player of the year in the Big 12 is Jalen Daniels. I mean, it's just like, I would have thought I never would have seen in my lifetime a KU player earn that award. So for them to have a coaching staff that can not only, I would say recruit him, but I guess that was part of the previous staff, being able to bring in a guy like that in, but be able to coach him up and have a guy like that, even when Texas and Oklahoma are still in the league. That's pretty amazing things that KU football is checking off the list that I didn't think was going to happen for a long, long time.
Okay, so KU basketball wins a title as you leave the beat. The Chiefs win a Super Bowl as you join the beat. When are you fixing the Royals, Jesse?
Well, what's more likely is, if you're the Cleveland Browns or the Jacksonville Jaguars, like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, triple my salary, bring me to another place. Like, this is way easier than fixing your GM or drafting a quarterback.
Exactly.
I mean, the formula is there. If you want success, you just need to be around your team and ask questions, and that's going to happen.
As a Colorado Rockies fan, can I interest you in 81 home games at Coors Field, America's finest ballpark?
Hey, money talks. So
Hey, Jesse, I do have to bring up, remember when you told me that the Royals weren't going to lose 100 games?
No, I think, I'm a guy for percentages. I think I said like 95% they weren't, 90% they weren't. And then you guys brought me on like a month later. I said, oh yeah, it's like 100% they're going to now. So I was playing the numbers all wrong with them. I thought they couldn't be this bad, but they managed to keep it up. Unfortunately for the Royals, but maybe they'll get a better draft pick next year.
Yeah, the Buddy Bell quote rings true. It can always get worse. All right, Jesse, let's get to some Chiefs talk, because you're really good at covering the team that you cover. Any surprise cuts in your mind thus far?
Yeah, a few, I would say. And, you sort of have to wait. We'll talk to Brett Veach tomorrow as part of an interview call to kind of get the full picture. The other part of this, you guys know this as well, is that just because the initial 53-man gets set today does not mean that there won't be changes. I mean, there's kind of a cruel thing that happens sometimes is guys make the 53-man roster, and then you claim somebody off waivers, so you have to go make another cut. And the Chiefs have positions out there. I'm sure they're looking at other teams to basically say, hey, can you fill in this position or this position with guys that were cut from around the league? So when we say they're setting their initial 53-man roster, it really is their initial one. But yeah, I would say, you start the list with Shane Michelle, the backup quarterback, who was the backup quarterback the last 2 weeks. The report out there that the Chiefs have cut him along with Chris Oladokin. That does say something to me. And Michelle's been a guy that they elevated from the practice squad a couple years ago because the Arizona Cardinals were kind of sniffing around. Potentially we're going to bring him on the active roster. And so the Chiefs used a resource then to keep him. And like I said, I mean, he made this to a competition. He was the second string quarterback the last 2 weeks for the Chiefs and had earned that role based off of his play in the preseason. So for the Chiefs to cut him, I think that's a little bit of a surprise. To cut both Deneric Prince and LaMichael Pirine, as our Sam McDowell has reported out there, to get down on running backs. I kind of figured that one of those two would go, but I didn't figure both of them. Obviously, Pirine had the great last 2 games, and then they were super high on Deneric Prince in the summer with his pass-catching ability, but he really hit a wall here in the last couple weeks, and you could tell that he was slipping down the depth chart when they replaced him at kickoff returner with Richie James, kind of basically showing that they were moving their thoughts to somebody else. That kickoff return job, like Isaiah Pacheco had last year, it gets you on the roster, and then from there you can kind of take advantage. But once they moved him off that, you kind of understand or kind of sense the writing on the wall for Deneric Prince there. So cutting both of those guys, I think that is something there. And then probably the surprise one you keep is Cam Jones. undrafted rookie linebacker out of Indiana. Again, we'll learn more about this tomorrow, but this seems like a Dave Toub pick. Dave Toub, assistant head coach, has been with Andy Reid for over a decade now here in Kansas City, but he sometimes does pull rank here. And when it comes to special teams and getting guys on the roster he thinks really can help that third unit on the field. And so for him to make it, and with the Chiefs linebacker room already sort of crowded as it is, when you talk about Nick Bolton, Willie Gay, Drew Tranquill, Leo Chanel, for him to make it on there, it seems like a special teams play, and it seems like a guy that not many people had on their 53-man projection. So we'll see how it all shakes out, and we'll see, I'm sure, more moves here in the next 24 hours or so. We still don't know all the cuts that have been made either. The Chiefs have not announced them officially, but right off the top, I think, Buechele, P. Ryan, and Deneric Prince, those are kind of at the top of maybe mild surprises, along with Cam Jones making the team.
What do you make of the Chiefs trading a 6th-round pick for a Raider defender who honestly fell kind of out of place with some of the Raiders beat reporters saying, he's not in great shape, not the best, Neil Farrell, but maybe his space eater can replace Noddy. You still got him for 3 years, this year and 2 more. Did not expect that to occur.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd say about that is, if you read between the lines, there really has not been any time in this preseason where we've talked to Steve Spagnuolo or Andy Reid or even Joe Cullen, the defensive line coach, and they have just sounded like these options on the defensive line have been wowing them or overwhelming them with their play. Sometimes that happens. I mean, how many questions were there coming into the season about the Chiefs wide receivers, right? I mean, okay, you got Richie James. What is he going to be? Justin Ross, can he stay healthy? But all of a sudden, we're talking through training camp. It's like, oh my gosh, they like this guy. They like this guy. Hey, Ihmir Smith-Marsette is playing well. They have a lot of depth at that position that maybe you didn't anticipate. It was sort of the very opposite of defensive line, which is the Chiefs. They kept shuffling in guys. It was Daniel Wise, the KU guy, and it was Matt Dickerson, and then they're getting Turk Warden back, and then Michael Dana comes back and kind of rotating in. But Omenahu's now in there, but he's going to be relied upon, but not for the first 6 games that he's suspended. So I think it made sense for the Chiefs to pursue another defensive lineman, especially potentially a defensive tackle, because it just never seemed like they were super happy with the options they had there, even if you go to guys like Danny Shelton, who was released today as well. So, yeah, it doesn't surprise me too much that they took a chance on a guy like that. Again, that they were scouring the wire to potentially see somebody who would make more sense for them, or at least kind of raise their talent level there. But just kind of, again, the writing on the wall throughout the last month or so has been that the defensive line room, they would have loved to have 1 or 2 more guys step up, and that just never really happened over the course of camp.
We're talking to Jesse Newell of the Kansas City Star, who covers the Kansas City Chiefs for the Star. He joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk. 2 quarterbacks, it looks like, on the initial 53-man roster after Shane Buechele gets cut. Blaine Gabbert makes the team. He'll back up Patrick Mahomes. Was the function of only keeping 2 quarterbacks, is that because there's a need to have an extra core special teamer on the roster, like a Cam Jones or somebody at a different position, because there's not really a core special teamer, at least not an obvious one, in the wide receiver group like there has been in recent years?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. And again, that's questions we need to ask Brett Veach tomorrow, because when it comes to roster construction, you kind of have to have all these pieces come together. And it's good to mention special teams, because I just think a lot of people don't take that into account. If you heard Andy Reid talking about potentially keeping 7 receivers, he talked a lot about what guys can help on special teams, because you do have to fill out those units. And again, the Chiefs do put a priority on that with Dave Toub, and maybe some other teams out there do not. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying it's sort of a reality. So you try to figure out those numbers again. If you're going to keep 7 receivers, okay, how many tight ends you keep, how many running backs you keep, how many quarterbacks. And we know there's that new rule in the NFL where you don't have to make your third quarterback active on game day, and yet he can be the emergency quarterback. That all took place, obviously, last year because of the playoff game where, the 49ers were left with playing anybody at quarterback. They're running, Christian McCaffrey because they ran out of guys. But you also have to think about that. It's a good rule to have, but is it worth it for the Chiefs? I mean, how often has that happened in a Chiefs game where you lose your top 2 quarterbacks in a particular game and have to go to the third string guy? And the answer is just like, it doesn't normally happen, at least not in the course of one game. Now, if you lost 1 in a game and then, the next game you could pull up somebody from the practice squad or whatever and reset your roster. But I just don't know if that rule in and of itself means the Chiefs would be forced to keep 3 quarterbacks because it's just such a rare occasion that sort of thing happens. And if we're being frank, like if you lose your top 2 quarterbacks in the game, you probably just going to mark that game up as a loss anyway. You know what I mean? Like you're probably just not winning the game anyway. So
Kadarius Toney going to be slinging it, man.
Well, they have a lot of former quarterbacks on the roster too. I mean, Richie James was one, Travis Kelce was one. I mean, Kadarius Toney. They got a lot of guys they could go to. But like I said, the original point is just it's a good rule, and Andy Reid said he likes the rule. It's just, is it worth it for that 0.01% chance that you're ever going to need it? And so potentially with the Chiefs, at least as it stands now, it looks like that they came to the conclusion that probably wasn't, and they can go ahead and keep 2 and go from there and keep somebody else on the practice squad. But again, I'll wait for everything to be settled here before making a grand assumption about what they did, because we've seen some rumors out there about the Chiefs being interested in Carson Wentz too. So there's other guys that got cut around the league, so maybe the Chiefs be interested in that. So again, we'll see how it all shakes out. But if nothing else, it'd be a good question for Brett Veach tomorrow, because the roster construction definitely seemed to have been affected by the Chiefs keeping 7 receivers, which they had never done previously in the 10 seasons under Andy Reid.
Do you think it's likely that Buechele gets to the practice squad through waivers?
I think it happens more than we think. I mean, you get to the time of year, and this is part of the thought process too, which is like, which guys will make it through waivers and which guys won't. And you just look across the NFL. I mean, who right now would take him immediately and put him on the roster and feel like he's got a really bright future? Now, again, you asked me this question 10 days ago, I'd probably give you a different answer, because he was so good in that second preseason game against Arizona, and it looked like he was really trending upward. So I think, I think my inclination is potentially he can be. We'll see. I mean, it only takes one team out there to really like you and say, hey, I like what I saw in that Arizona game. I think this is a young up-and-coming quarterback that could be a backup for years to come. But it seems to me like we always sort of get weary in these situations, like, oh, the Chiefs going to lose all these guys to the waiver, and yet the waiver wire goes through, and normally it's only a handful of guys that get picked off at real positions of need. So we'll see. I mean, the answer is always we'll see, but if the Chiefs could get him back to the practice squad, obviously that would be an ideal situation.
Really quick, Jesse, when's Chris Jones showing up?
I don't know, guys. This thing has lasted longer than we all thought. So if not this week, the Chiefs probably have a serious problem on their hands. But if he does show up this week, maybe you can get a handful of snaps in the opener, and then you play it from there. But if I'm his agent at this point, I would say go play on your $20 million contract, go ball out, and then go get a huge contract from like the Chicago Bears next year, 3 years, $30 million a year, and get your $100 million that way. But this thing has dragged on longer than anybody thought, and right now it's still up in the air. So we'll see. I would have him go to practice next week, but it seems like those two sides are dug in, and potentially Chris Jones, that's not on his mind at this point. So we'll have to show up to practice and see who's there.
Do they put him on the do not report list, or will he be on the 53?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question we are waiting on from the Chiefs when they release their official roster, and that could give us a better indication of where things stand as well.
Is there anything in the world less surprising than the Chiefs being late to something, like press conference, releasing their roster cuts? Like this is really on brand. I almost respect how on brand this is.
There was a team out there, I don't remember which one it was, but they just flat out put their 53 man out at like 110 today, and it was like, wow, this PR staff is going for the gold here. Like they are wanting to take all the awards home. So it's fine. I mean, I think most teams in the NFL operate like this, so I don't think I think this is not the exception. I think this is the rule. But yeah, it makes for an interesting day, an exciting day, and obviously a day that you keep refreshing Twitter, X, whatever your social media platform is, because it seems like there's news breaking all the time.
All righty, Jesse, give me the prediction for the Chiefs for record this year. What's their record?
I was way low on them last year. I think the AFC is good. I think their schedule's good, but it's just hard now to see what they did last year and think that they're not going to be winning those close games and having a similar record. I guess you actually are the first. This is crazy. You're the first one to ask me a record prediction, so I don't even have one on the record out there. I'll go 12-5. 12-5 for the Chiefs. Good season. They put them up top toward the top of the AFC, and yeah, hard to know exactly without Chris Jones in there, but you figure he's probably going to play at some point. If that happens, then Chiefs have a so-so to good defense and a really, really good offense, and that's usually a pretty good formula for success.
Jesse, do you have a dark horse player for the Chiefs this year where people are going to be like, wow, this dude is balling?
Sky Moore.
Love it.
Sky Moore's the guy.
Love
Sky,
it.
Sky Moore.
Not 900 plus yards. Get him on your fantasy rosters.
Brendan just fell down. Look at
900,
Look
Jesse.
at that. I love it. Love it, Jesse. Jesse, we are glad you are a friend, and we appreciate it. Jesse, best of luck at the press conference tomorrow, okay?
All right. Sounds good. Appreciate you guys.
That's Jesse Newell.
900.
He likes Jesse Newell.
That is spicy.
I'm all for
That's
it.
not just bold. That's like extra spicy.
You like extra spicy.
I do sometimes.
Abby made sriracha wings last night. I was not ready for them, but they were good.
Wing night at Lucero Manor too.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, we ordered in, but
they were tasty. Air fryer is truly the greatest appliance.
no, that's a fact.
Yeah.
Undefeated. Never lost.
What did I have last night?
Man, you are getting old.
No, I don't remember.
We got a lot going on. It's fine.
I
Yeah,
did.
there's a lot going on at home last night.
That's true. That's true. What did I?
Order in?
No.
Macaroni and cheese.
Yeah,
Chicken nuggets?
The kids had that. Kids had mac and cheese. You know it. A little man wanted mac and cheese. I don't even know, dude. Guys, I don't even remember.
Will Jake find out what he had
Wow.
for dinner last night? Find out next hour on 580
Oh,
Sports
man.
Talk.
Coming up next, we will get to the Big 12 and the also ran. 580 Sports Talk, hour number 3 on this NFL cut day. And the Chiefs have finally announced who they are keeping and who they are cutting in. Boy, there are some surprises when it comes to this. We will get to all of that. We got What Is Wrong With You, as well as Michael Swain talking a little KU football leading into the game against the Bears of Missouri State. Terry Allen's still the coach there. Is that the thing? Is he still a coach for the Bears?
He has not been there on at least 2 coaches.
That's what I'm asking. Is he
Bobby
still there?
Petrino had been there.
Bobby P. Gotta stay off motorcycle.
Ryan Beard is their head coach.
Yeah, he's their former defensive coordinator.
Okay.
He's only 33. He's really young.
Well, we've got the roster construction, and we will get to that. If you want to give your thoughts, hit us up on our text line, 785-272-9429. Also hit us up on YouTube. Go to youtube.com, type in 580 Sports Talk. Let's get to it real quick. Thought that they would release this last hour, but here we are. Released, which means they are free agents. They can sign with anyone, okay? Anyone, including the Chiefs. Kendall Blanton, Deion Bush, Austin Ryder, Danny Shelton. So that could be one of those like, hey, don't go anywhere. We want to re-sign you. This is what we got to do for roster construction purposes. Waived, which means you go through waivers. These are alphabetical order. DiCaprio Boodle.
Devastating for my guy.
I never saw him make a play. Like we're going on like 3 preseasons of DiCaprio Boodle. He's not an NFL player. I can say that with confidence.
But his name is DiCaprio Boodle.
Yeah.
It's a great name.
Echo Boydo, K-State rookie.
Bet he's a practice squad guy.
Shane Buechele.
Probably the same.
Yeah, if they can get him through.
Matt Bushman.
What the hell?
Who are they keeping?
They're not keeping as many skill guys as we thought.
Wow.
Which tells me they're keeping more linemen or core special teams guys at defensive back or linebacker.
So right now, we know they're only keeping 2 quarterbacks. There's an open spot that we thought.
Mm-hmm.
We know that they're only keeping 3 tight ends. So that's the second open spot that we know of. We know,
and we know one of those is Cam Jones.
So maybe eliminate one of them.
Yeah, one of those Cam Jones at linebacker. So they're probably keeping, they're keeping 6 linebackers. Jack Cochran made the team.
Yeah, but I figured Jack Cochran was going to make this team.
Right. We thought they'd keep 5. They're keeping 6.
Yeah.
So
Deion Bush is what? Who are they keeping instead of Deion Bush? Like, it's just Matt Bushman, Shane Buechele cut, Cole Christensen, Anthony Cook, Jerron Ely, Ty Freifogel. That's a sweet name. Isaiah
Indiana, great.
Isaiah Gatherings.
Gathings.
Gatherings. They're cutting a guy.
Chukwuebuka
Godric.
He was part of the Chiefs' International Pathway Program.
Okay. Juwan Green, Sebastian Gutierrez, Khalif Halassi.
What you call him before?
Haley Selassie.
Haley Selassie.
Yeah. Anderson Hardy, Phil Hoskins, Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, wow. Imagine Lamar Jackson getting cut.
That should be headline news.
Yeah.
Everybody should be tweeting right now. Lamar Jackson has been cut.
2 years ago, before everyone turned on Adam Schefter, he absolutely would have tweeted that.
Truman Jones, Joshua Kando, 3rd round pick a couple years ago.
4th round pick.
4th round pick, yep. Here's one. Darian Kennard, the O-lineman they drafted in the 5th round out of Kentucky.
It's a real surprise to me. Maybe they hope they can get him to the practice squad again. He was SEC Lineman of the Year.
Yeah.
He was
an All-American.
Yes, and Chiefs got him in the 5th round, and it's just incredibly raw.
Yeah.
And clearly not somebody they trust with a 53-man roster spot yet.
Drawn Lowe, Isaiah Norman, Chris Oladokun, LaMichael Pirine, Cornell LaMichael P. Who are they keeping? Generic Prince, Ty Scott, Reese Taylor, Chris Williams, and Daniel Wise. Waived due to injury. Our guy, Nico Remigio.
Yeah, makes sense.
Stashed him there. Jerome Carvin, offensive lineman. And then linebacker
Olakunle Fatakasi.
There you go. Traded to the Panthers. Smith-Marsette, acquired via trade. Neil Farrell, and They did. They put him on the reserve did not report list. Chris Jones.
Ooh, you know who did make it? Malik Herring.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Love that.
I think Malik Herring made it. And also, it would probably assume that Prince Tego Winogo made it.
Tego Winogo made it.
I haven't seen
Mike Caliendo.
He's on.
Caliendo's not on that list. Yeah,
I would assume he did.
So they must have kept an extra lineman. Maybe kept 10 linemen, 10 O linemen.
Yeah. Let's see here.
Although cutting Kennard, we all thought he was going to make the team, so maybe they did just keep 9.
expect Ryder to make the practice squad, by the way.
Yep.
I do want to say this, though. Chris Jones, placed on the reserve, did not report the list. This could be a misread on my part. I freely admit that I could be wrong. But this is the first time that I have grown concerned about the status of Chris Jones with regards to whether or not he's really going to play for the Chiefs this year. Because I thought they would leave that door open here this final week. And look, maybe this is just strictly procedural and I'm making more out of it than needs to be made of it.
They can get an extra guy on the 53 because of this. He does not count towards the 53.
And my read of it was, if they put him on the 53, then that's, hey, we still think we're going to get something done with you. We were still planning on having you on the 53. But, I mean, they could still get a deal done tomorrow with him, I suppose, and then somebody else gets removed from the 53.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose that could totally happen. But isn't there a stipulation with the reserve list where you miss games if you start on that list? Like, you can't play?
No, he can play. They just don't have to pay him. Like, he can still play in the game coming up.
Yeah, he doesn't count against the salary cap.
No. So maybe this is how they're gonna pay for all of their practice squad guys.
I guess so. The wording, by the way, from the big time insiders, Ian Rappaport has said the holdout continues. Schefter said the holdout goes on with no end currently in sight. That has been the insider that all of the public negotiations have gone through. Remember, it was an Adam Schefter tweet originally about how the Chiefs want him back, and it was Chris Jones wants X amount of money. So that to me, if you're really getting into the reading every single possible detail, would back up Dan's feeling that this is getting a little bleak.
They're
scary.
They kept 10 offensive linemen instead of 9. They kept their backups are Allegretti, Tego Winogo, Wanya Morris, Lucas Niang, and Mike Caliendo.
Yeah.
So they kept 10 O-linemen.
And I'm wondering if that's just out of some caution for Allegretti, who didn't play in the final preseason game. Caliendo's got some experience at center, just in case they need a center. Although they could have kept Ryder, but Caliendo's a little more versatile.
They kept 10 D linemen: Karloftis, Dana, and Udika Uzama, Herring, BJ Thompson, Neil Farrell Jr., Derek Nottie, Tershawn Wharton, Keandre Coburn, and Matt Dickerson. So they kept Dickerson. For the linebackers, and we kind of knew this because the Chiefs put that out there. They're keeping 6: Bolton Tranquil, Gay, Chanel, Cam Jones, and Jack Cochran. Corners: Snead, McDuffie, Watson, Williams, Nick Jones. Not a surprise there. And then they kept 4 safeties, not 5: Reed, Cook, Edwards, and Shamari Connor.
So Nick Jones will be IR'd. That'll open up a roster spot for somebody.
And
my suspicion is Bush. But that is just suspicion.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be.
So yeah, they kept more O linemen than we expected, and they kept one more linebacker than we thought. And that's where the difference. That's where you make up the difference in one skill guy and one less quarterback.
Dang, so tough go for me in terms of keeping guys on the roster. I think I missed 6. Yeah, that's tough.
I thought they'd keep Kennard and I I thought they'd keep Kennard and only have 9, but they kept Prince Tega Winoga and they added Caliendo.
That's tough for Kennard. I guess there's a reason why an SEC first team all league lineman, all America caliber player was only a 5th round pick. Usually linemen that end up with those kind of honors do not fall that far in the draft. But man, I really thought there was going to be something there with him. I guess he could end up being a practice squad guy, but
for whatever it is, it hasn't like come together.
Hasn't
for
clicked.
him.
Yeah. That's weird. This is kind of a weird roster. I mean, we're talking about, the 40th through 53rd guy on the roster, but still a little surprised.
They're the dream situation is, I think, 3 guys truly make it through waivers.
They all will.
I'm saying that this is they're hoping Buechele does.
Yeah.
They're hoping Bushman does.
Uh-huh.
They're hoping Pirine does. Like outside of those 3, I think they're fine if anybody else gets picked up.
I would imagine of the guys who were released or waived, because we got to wait for the procedural stuff with Nick Jones on IR and all that. But I would imagine if you assume Bush comes back, you're going to have Ryder, Shelton, Boydo, Buechele, Bushman. That's a lot of Bs. All practice squad guys. I bet Halasi probably ends up there. I think Kennard probably will. Prince or Pirine will.
Kando, maybe?
Yeah, probably Kando.
Cornell Powell?
Yeah, Powell probably. You probably want at least one wide receiver on there.
Yeah, for sure.
You've got 16
and
spots.
He's been a fixture.
So
if
right
not
there,
him,
there's 10.
Then Freifogel probably.
Yeah, so right there's 10 of them, 10 to 12. And then they might find a guy somewhere else that they want to add, or, guys elsewhere they want to add. So I think the guys they liked, they will get back.
Let me ask you this. Ready? What if the Chiefs and Chris Jones are very close? And let me hear me out. I'm gonna go full Kanye. I'm gonna let you finish. What if they're close, but they haven't figured out the complete details, and this is the way to get cap relief? What if this is the way?
Well, it's only temporary cap relief.
But if they get a new contract, his cap number will not be 28 million. It'll be 8 million, and they didn't have to restructure anybody else. The only thing they're going to have to do is say, adios, Matt Dickerson from the 53-man roster. You're gone. What if this is their way of getting cap relief? I'm just trying to go through every single possible situation.
I hear what you're saying. That would be a lot of hoops to jump through just to clear a little space.
Because what are you doing with that space?
I don't.
You got to do it because you got to send your practice squad. They don't.
Yeah,
have
you have to have practice squad.
You have to.
They don't
you literally have to do it to have a
otherwise
legal roster.
See, to me,
that's right.
Me, if they were hell bent on I'm not playing, then they already would have restructured Mahomes or so and so. But maybe, and then maybe I'm not, because this was the plan all along to have that cap space. He's not on the did not reports. They got $19 million in cap space right now. So they didn't have to, they don't have to truly get cap space with someone else unless they sign him or they wait until he shows up, because he's going to show up with at minimum 6 weeks to go, because that's in order for him to accrue a season. He will play the final 6 games of the year. There is no question in my mind. Otherwise, this year doesn't count, and he does it all over again next year. He has to accrue a season, which is 6 games.
If he's not here by week 2, I think he gets traded week 8. I think if he is not going to play the vast majority of this season, it gets to a point where the Chiefs feel like their hands are tied and they have to trade him. Because someone will give up a ton for him and someone will give him the contract.
I don't know if you can do that mid-season, because you unless he says I'm absolutely not reporting. Like if he says he'll report week 8, okay, fine. Let's go win a Super Bowl with you playing half the season, whatever, and then we'll figure out something to do with you after the season. But man, it'd be really hard to look those other 52 guys in the eye and say we did everything we could to build a Super Bowl roster if trading Chris Jones halfway through the season is part of it, even if he's not there.
I suppose.
I can't wait for the 35-34 game coming up on September 7th.
The selling point the other way, though, is are we worse off because he didn't want to be here with you guys anyway? I mean, that's a dangerous game because it's dangerous to try to turn players against one another because then if it backfires, they turn on you and then you get all sorts of problems in the locker room. But I don't know. I just feel like this is it. Like this is his last year in Kansas City. He's not getting an extension with this team.
I'm not there yet.
Nah, man, this feels like bad blood at this point. To me, I might be wrong. I would be pretty close to shocked if he gets a long-term deal at this point.
I think it's so much about money. If he gets the money he wants, I think he'll be here. I don't know if it will, but
if he was getting the money he would want, I think it's done. I think he's here. I think he's with the team 3 weeks ago. Because when it all boils down to where we are right now, I don't think this is different than Orlando Brown. I don't think this is different than Tyrann Mathieu. Well, Mathieu is different because they didn't want him, period.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is different than some of these guys. They've got a number. Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Hell, they were going to offer Tyreek Hill even more money than he got. Like, we've got a number. You are going to take it or you are not going to take it. And that is fine, but you were giving you that number. And I admit, I could be wrong about this. But the feel of the situation, the fact that there has been no progress, because if nothing else, you feel like we would have heard, Nate Taylor has broken a lot of this stuff, broken the details of it that, well, Chris Jones wants this, and the Chiefs right now are here.
And that they also was the first with the detail that the Chiefs are waiting until the Quinnen Williams extension gets done,
right,
to offer a kind
Turns
of a
out it didn't matter.
So, but you would have thought that from someone, whether it's Schefter, whether it's Nate Taylor, whether it's someone, that there would have been a nugget, a note that something is happening. But the fact that we haven't gotten any of that leads me to believe that we have hit a stalemate that there, to me, might not be any coming back from.
Two different texters from the 785 have a similar question regarding Jones and maybe not reporting until week 8. Does that change the dollars on the franchise tag for next year?
Yes. 1,000. He becomes a $18 million player.
Because it is about the value of your previous year's contract. That's how they determine the franchise.
And that if you're not going to report after that, like at that point, you're not a football player anymore. Like if you're just refusing to play any football.
You're Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, you cease to be a football player at that point.
Coming up next, we got What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports.
What is wrong with you time here on 580 Sports Talk? Brendan and Dan here with you. Major, what is wrong with you from the world of Major League Baseball just now? The Angels are just putting a bunch of their players on waivers. It's just, come get them. You want to take them.
Lucas Giolito, Matt Moore, Ronaldo Lopez, all pitchers, the latter two relievers. Hunter Renfroe and Randall Grichuk, both outfielders. Grichuk and Giolito and Lopez were acquired last month. They were go-for-it moves. The Angels were trying. They were all in. Capital A, capital I, all in. And now any team in baseball who wants these guys can have them for the low, low price of whatever's left on their contracts.
And, by the way, all you have to do to be eligible to play for a team in the postseason is be in the organization by Thursday.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Like, Lucas Giolito has been awful since that trade, but, like, I've watched Jameson Taillon pitch enough this year for the Cubs to know, like, that's worth a shot. Like,
yeah, like if the Reds need a starting pitcher and think they're still in it, the Marlins.
Every team needs bullpen help. We've been over that before. Renfroe's been fine this year, has he not?
Yeah, he hits home runs. Good defensive player, good arm.
Yeah, man, this is nuts. What a day.
It's absolutely wild.
We do have two What Is Wrong With You stories we have to get to today before we talk to Michael Swain for Jayhawk Weekly. Our What Is Wrong With You, as always, is brought to you by our good friends at Top City Metal Supply, who cut the metal you need to your specifications. That saves time, money, and materials. So never settle when it comes to metal at Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Our winner yesterday was a gentleman in Altoona, Pennsylvania, who was pretty much running a drug ring out of his apartment and called the police with the story about having his apartment broken into.
And just invited them in.
Said, yeah, come on in, check it out.
Yeah, take a gander at all these drugs that I cannot provide prescriptions for, and also the ones that are not prescription.
Yeah, he had $25K worth of fentanyl.
It's so many drugs.
Lot of drugs. My story today is going to take us to, I believe we're going to the Bay Area here. Yes, indeed we are. We're going to the Bay, California, where, San Francisco, in fact, where U.S. attorneys have identified a man from Hayward, California, who they allege was driving a Cadillac in what became a viral photo where his girlfriend was seen hanging out the window holding an AK-47 with the wind whipping through her hair. Earlier this month, federal prosecutors identified the driver as 26-year-old Christopher Gonzalez Nunez, who they say has ties to a gang, as well as the woman in her picture, who is his girlfriend, described officially as his significant other. Now, this photo was taken all the way back in 2021, but they just identified the couple now. How did they identify the couple, you might ask? Well, the photo went viral on social media, and their friends started tagging them and mentioning them by name on Instagram.
Ugh, with friends like those.
Quote, not only does the car match a vehicle that Gonzalez Nunez owned at the time, but Instagram users tagged him in photos from the incident and mentioned him by name, according to the assistant U.S. attorney, Leif Douch. Great name, by the way. Quote, perhaps most tellingly, Gonzalez Nunez posted a photo on his Instagram of what appears to be him wearing a T-shirt depicting his girlfriend leaning out of the car holding a gun. So, to recap, they did this thing which you cannot be doing. They were tagged on Instagram in the picture by their friends who referenced them by name, and then he got the picture on a T-shirt and wore it in public and took a picture of himself wearing it. He's in trouble. He's been charged with being a felon in possession of 3 guns and ammunition, including 2 unserialized pistols, which were allegedly found during a raid of his home. Not great.
No.
He's already a criminal, obviously.
Yeah.
He was already a felon and had unserialized guns. But, can't be driving around with your girlfriend hanging out the side of your car holding an AK-47.
No. Some things not worth doing for the gram.
Yeah, and you can't have your friends mention you by name in a picture of it when it goes viral, too. Hey, Christopher, wasn't this fun? Hey, remember when you texted me about this? Can't do that.
All right, for my story today, we are going to, I think this is New Jersey, where we meet 30-year-old Colin J. DeLuca, a former resident of a condominium complex in Evesham, who is accused of torching 2 unoccupied homes within 24 hours and having items in his vehicle capable of starting a third blaze when he was arrested at the Marlton Village complex. The vehicle also held a crossbow, which is a wild detail. On August 20, fire gutted a home and damaged an adjoining residence, making both uninhabitable. That fire scene is adjacent to heavily traveled Old Marlton Pike. A second fire one night later on the nearby 100 block of Empress Court was extinguished by the homeowner. It caused minor damage. No injuries were reported from either fire. Police flooded the area in the effort to capture DeLuca. Based on the second fire, they realized there was significant risk to the community. Information from witnesses and surveillance video helped police identify DeLuca as a suspect. However, DeLuca identified himself as a suspect because he called the police while driving in Marlton Village around 12:15 a.m. on August 23rd, according to a probable cause statement. It said DeLuca claimed he wanted to confront people who were cyber attacking him, but since he couldn't locate them, he called police. Authorities initially did not realize the first fire was suspicious because a dead squirrel was found with an apparent wire in its mouth near the blaze's starting point. But investigators saw similarities after the second fire. Each of them had started in roughly the same area. Police and firefighters arrived at the Aspen Court fire to find a home engulfed around 10 p.m. A pungent odor of an unknown accelerant was still detectable. Also, a canine brought to the complex had a positive indication for an accelerant at both fire scenes. Surveillance video near the Empress Court home showed a man parking a car, taking something from the trunk and walking away. And as the person returns to his vehicle, the fire can be seen. Under questioning by police, DeLuca acknowledged the vehicle was his. He said he'd taken a lighter from the trunk, but had not removed lighter fluid inside it. The statement says DeLuca does not know the residents of that particular home. Miller says investigators do have information of what his motive could be, but offer no details. At this point, the chief says, I'm fully confident we have the person responsible.
What the hell?
They say he's being cyber bullied. And so he decided to set some houses on fire. Thankfully, nobody was hurt.
Why doesn't he just do what most people who get cyberbullied do and spend $44 billion to buy the website where you're being bullied?
Yeah, you would think so.
What the hell? That is outrageous.
Some odd behavior. A lot of people telling on themselves. This is telling on yourself week.
Yeah, it really
on what is wrong with you.
All right. Well, this one wins today, I think. This is a lot to handle and a lot to process. I'm going to say this does not beat our fentanyl guy, though.
Yeah, again, we have elements of telling on yourself, but it is
quite literally
absolutely wild behavior to invite the police into your drug den. To be like, hey, man, I got broken into. And, oh, by the way, I have papers for those illegal, those pills. That's no big deal. I have them all over the house.
Is this story worse than the couple we've had over time where people call the police and say they got bad drugs? They're like, yes, I'm in possession of cocaine. My dealer gave me bad drugs and I want my money back. Is this worse than that?
Or like, can I bring these drugs in to test to make sure that they are okay to do or sell?
Yes, please do. And please bring other identifying documents along with you.
Yeah, if you could, maybe, a piece of mail, your government issued identification. No, man, he just invited him right on in and couldn't produce any evidence that there was actually a break-in.
Yeah, see, you got to... Look, I'm not advising anyone do this. In fact, I would strongly advise you do not do this. But you've got to at least, break a window, right? You got to do something to indicate, yes, indeed, someone was here. Someone broke into my place.
Because then you could say, oh, man, they dropped their drugs.
No. My fingerprints? No. It's because I was scared and I thought I should get rid of this.
That $25K in fentanyl and at $1,300 in meth, that's not mine. The guy who broke in left them to make me look bad. I've been framed, I tell you.
At least then you have an argument, right? You can say.
He just kind of invited them in, probably in substance-induced fog, and was like, yeah, never mind all that. The important thing to remember here is that somebody broke into my apartment. Nothing else. Certainly not these large quantities of illegal drugs that you see in front of you. Nothing else is germane to what I called you here to do. So double jeopardy, right? And the police that's absolutely not how double jeopardy works.
Not even remotely close, but good Good thinking. Good try. That wins again. I assume that gets your vote.
Yes.
That wins again in What Is Wrong With You. Brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. Michael Swain will join us next to talk all about Kansas football. It's Jayhawk Weekly on 580 Sports Talk. Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline is the one and only Michael Swain, who covers the Kansas Jayhawks for Fog.net and 24/7 Sports. Head to Fog.net for all of Michael's fantastic coverage of Kansas football, basketball, recruiting, etc. Also, go follow him on Twitter at mswain247 as we get ready for week 1 for KU football game against Missouri State coming up on Friday night. Michael, how ready are you?
Very ready. Very ready. I think I probably speak for people on the beat, KU fans in general. We've all kind of said what's going to be said about the preseason and all of that. It's time for some games and some new data to come in. So we've got more interesting things to talk about than who's going to be the backup defensive tackle. So I'm fired up for Friday night and really excited for the season to get underway.
And to that point about backups, starters, etc., and we'll get to the game itself here in just a moment. The first 2 deep of the year did come out, well, mostly 2 deep, came out earlier this week, the first depth chart for KU heading into week 1. I don't know, at least from my perspective, that there was anything that was surprising on there, but what really jumped off the page to you? Was there anything that, really made you raise your eyebrows, or you thought, I predicted this earlier on? What were sort of the most notable parts about that 2 deep?
Yeah, I'm not going to go full-blown double pat on the back for myself, but, not a whole lot surprised. And folks that are subscribed probably saw my projected 2 deeps, and you saw a lot of the same names you saw on the actual 2 deep. I think for me, I go to specialists in these instances because those are harder to get a feel for sometimes. And the fact that Trevor Wilson, I think, won the punt return job is really interesting to me because I think last year just stylistically, schematically, KU did not want their punt returner to actually return the punt. They wanted that player, O.J. Burroughs, last year, to catch the ball, secure possession, and go from there, where I think there's going to be a little bit of a difference in approach this year, where I think you'll see Trevor Wilson get the chance to go and return some punts and make some plays. And from what we've seen during his 2 years at Kansas, he's got elite speed. He can make people miss. He's the right type of guy that I think you want back there returning punts. So I thought that was interesting. I think obviously you look at the kicking situation with Jacob Borchilla no longer around. You've got Owen Peepergardis and then Seth Keller competing there. I think Seth Keller will start. And then I think Lance Leipold let the cat out of the bag last night, saying Damon Greaves, when talking punters, he only mentioned Damon Greaves, even though there's an or there. So I think that's pretty interesting for me, looking at the special teams units kind of heading into the season, where I think we kind of know who's going to be contributing on offense and defense this year.
To the offensive and defensive points, I know we've talked about these players a handful of times during camp and during the summer. The two things that I took note of immediately, and again, if you have been listening to Michael every week for Jayhawk Weekly, and of course are subscribed to Fog.net, you would have seen some of this information too. One is seeing that Calvin Clements, the freshman from Lawrence, is on the 2 deep at right tackle, backup for Bryce Cabledew. That feels like a big deal, even if he's not going to play a lot as a freshman. And then defensively, Dylan Brooks on the edge as well, the transfer from Auburn. I know the talk has been there's a lot of potential, but he is a project, and it might take a while for him to get there. But to see him, even if it's an or at the one defensive end spot with him, to see him on this first depth chart, to me, is really encouraging because it does feel like there's a lot of talent there.
Yeah, I mean, starting with Dylan, right? It shows you how much talent there is that everyone around the KU program, you ask them, and they'll say, yeah, let's talk about him this time next year when he's 250 pounds and has a year to really understand things. I think we saw it last year, right? There were a lot of transfers that came in over the summer. And I think at first glance, you think those players will come in and start right away or make a big impact right away. But in reality, right, it does take time for those guys to acclimate, and getting a spring ball is huge. And so I think for someone like Dylan Brooks, the player you see on Friday night against Missouri State, I think is just going to look different in terms of the way he's playing compared to the end of the season, because I think he's going to improve a lot over the course of the year. And again, big time potential, but also a big time project. So on the offensive line, I think Calvin Clements making it, again, not a huge surprise, but I think it speaks to how good of a first impression he's made on people around the program, that's where he's at. And he got some backup snaps at left tackle, right? I know he's listed as the backup at right tackle, but he got backup snaps at left tackle. He's played both sides. That's huge because we know how Scott Fuchs likes to cross-train offensive linemen. And for Calvin Clements, as a true freshman, to already be getting cross-trained snaps with the second team is a big deal. And so for him now, it's just getting stronger, continuing to develop as just a human being, right? Because he is still, I believe he's still 18. But I mean, he's someone that, in terms of like freshman class standouts, I think he's probably near the top of the list, with Keaton Kubeka, the freshman wide receiver, probably being second.
Michael Swain is our guest, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. It's Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk. Michael joins us at this time every Tuesday. Go follow all of his phenomenal work at fog.net and 24/7 Sports covering the Kansas Jayhawks. As we get ready then for week one coming up on Friday night, I assume KU is going to win this game, and unless there's a total disaster, KU is probably going to win this game handily. So in these games with the redshirt rule, which is not super new at this point, but since you can play a bunch of guys, mostly young guys, still redshirt them some of these early games in the year, who are some of the players that would pop out to you and make you think we may see them for even extended run here week one, even if they're a redshirt candidate later on? Who are some of those guys that could contribute early and still be preserved for that extra year of eligibility?
Yeah, so I think and here's the funny part, right? You look at the people who were freshmen last year, well, they all redshirted, and now you're looking at the freshman class this year. And I'm really interested to see defensively who all kind of would see the field if KU is able to make this a 35-point game. You know, who are some of those guys that maybe get 2 drives at the end of the game? Does Logan Brantley, the freshman linebacker from Colorado, who I think athletically has stood out to people around the program, and he really has that desire to get better. Is he out there playing? Jameel Croft got some rave reviews over the course of camp. Taylor Davis and Jacoby Davis are 2 other, a safety and a corner defensively, who I think could be in a position to just get a little bit of run. But I think for me, I look offensively. And KU got 3 wide receivers in this class. And I mentioned Keaton Quebec a second ago, and he's the one I'm kind of most interested to see because he kind of fits the classic bill of a Texas high school football player, right? He played at one of the best high schools in the country, was basically in college because the weightlifting program, the detail work that they do at practice is so far above, I think, what other high schools are doing across the country. And so he comes in and really impresses. And he was a summer enrollee. And so what does he look like offensively if he's able to get snaps? Does he look like a freshman, or does he look like a guy that has kind of been around physically some really imposing players in Texas? So I think for me, those are kind of some of the snapshot players. And then you get down the list, right? Maybe someone like Brian Dilworth, who's a redshirt freshman now, is he going to be able to get some snaps? Even someone like Demarius McGee, right? A former top 100 recruit, transfer from LSU, who came in January, but I think over the course of the season, he can be another one that gets some rotational snaps. So what does he look like out there? So I think we're at the point now where, we know a lot about what Kansas has starting, but I really do think there are a lot of players that could really benefit from some of those snaps at the end of a game if KU is able to make it a blowout.
Michael, it sounds like the injury situation is pretty positive. Lance Leipold sounded fairly positive about it going into this week. Is that a fair read of the situation, that there's no lingering injury concerns or guys who right now project to miss some significant time going into week 1?
Yeah, in terms of like long-term injuries, guys that are going to miss months instead of days, it doesn't sound like there are very, very many of those. It is hard to get a feel for it just because, I think through the first kind of 2.5 weeks of camp, there was, just a lot of talk that, hey, guys are missing some snaps with, soft tissue injuries. And I'm interested to see what the snap counts look like for some of those guys, OJ Burrows, Colin Berryhill. I think Jalen Daniels is the most obvious. Does he play? How much does he play? I know Lance Leipold kind of alluded to the fact that Daniels is listed as a starter on the depth chart, and that's the direction they're going to go. But that's not necessarily a resounding pound, fist on the table. Hey, Jalen Daniels is going to start. And so if he does play, how much does he play? So I still think there may be some lingering questions, but I think in terms of long-term injuries, guys missing games, I think KU's in a pretty good spot. And I think like we saw last year, right? I think it's about kind of week 4 when that list kind of starts to grow. I think it was after the Duke game last year when guys started to kind of get a little bit more banged up. So it seems like going into kind of the first little batch of games here, it seems like KU's in a pretty good spot, but I'm still going to be watching Jalen Daniels because I think so much rides on his health this season.
Missouri State is the opponent Friday night in the season opener. And obviously them being an FCS team, the expectation is for Kansas to handle business. Like you said, ideally you'd like to be able to get up on top of them to an extent where you can get some younger guys, some possible redshirt guys, some drives at the end. But in what ways can Missouri State test or challenge Kansas? What things do you think we can learn about Kansas based on some of the things, whether it's schematically or talent-wise, that Missouri State brings to the table?
Yeah, so I think I look offensive line for Kansas, and we've heard Lance Leipold talk a lot about being more physical up front, and I look right at Missouri State's defensive line, and they've got a guy actually from Blue Valley High School, Sterling Smithson, who's about 6'3", 325 pounds. Like, that's the type of defensive lineman that if he had played at Baylor, at Texas, would have given KU issues last year. How's KU do against him? You look at, I think, offensively for Missouri State, they've got a very, very talented running back in Cartier Wright, who I think local people might remember from his time at Kansas State. He's someone that they're going to really try and run the ball with. The right side of Missouri State's offensive line is a much more established product than the left side of Missouri State's offensive line. So I think I really look in the trenches and say, okay, can Kansas take care of business there? And if they can, I think that bodes somewhat well, right, going into an Illinois game where the trenches are going to be really important. But I think for KU, when I look at the kind of the positions, right, it's going to be, can KU's offensive line dominate? Can KU's defensive line create pressure on whoever quarterback's playing? I think Kansas fans also can understand how bad of a situation it is if you're going into the season opener saying we're playing both quarterbacks. That's not necessarily great. But I look at one more spot, punter. Grant Burkett is the Missouri State's punter. He's a 2-time All-American, 3-time All-Missouri Valley Conference, average punt distance 44.1 yards. He's going to be booming kicks if KU's defense is doing its job, and KU needs to avoid any sort of a punt like I mentioned with Trevor Wilson earlier, returning punts, no special teams mishaps. I think KU will be able to take care of business. But I think those are some of the areas that I think we'll probably learn a little bit more about where KU's at on Friday night.
Final couple of questions for Michael Swain, who covers the Kansas Jayhawks for Fog.net and 24/7 Sports. It's Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk as KU gets ready for Week 1 against Missouri State coming up on Friday night. All right, let's say it is a blowout. Let's play the hypothetical game here. Last year, KU won against its FCS opponent 56-3. It was a pretty easy win overall for KU. Let's say it is something somewhere in that realm again this year. Jalen Daniels plays. They don't have to play him in the second half. Jason Bean plays. We know what Bean is. Let's put someone else in there. Who's QB3 coming off the bench? Is it the walk-on Cole Ballard or the guy who's been there for a little bit in Ben Easters?
That's a really good question. I think Ben Easters might get the nod because he's just been around. And I think getting someone like him that's been around and been a good teammate, been a good culture guy, I think getting him some reps would be just important for the morale of that quarterback room. But I'll tell you what, Cole Ballard is someone that I think fans he's going to play in a game at some point during his KU career. He's the type of guy that I think just fits what KU wants. He's tough. He's smart. He's athletic. He's got a good arm. So I think Cole Ballard's got a future at KU. But I think for this specific instance, it wouldn't shock me if Easters is the one that gets the snaps.
Last year, again, against Tennessee Tech, and I know, you have to adjust for opponent. I understand that. But for a program that was trying to, start an upward trajectory, program on the rise, whatever you want to call KU last year, I think it was extremely important for that defense to see Lonnie Phelps go out there and dominate. And he was incredible against Tennessee Tech. I think it was 7 tackles, 3 sacks, 4 TFLs. He was incredible. So looking ahead then to this year, and I hope I'm not wish casting too much here, but you have a guy like Devin Phillips, who we have talked about before, I think just last week, in fact, Michael. He is different. He moves differently. He's an older guy. He's played a ton of football at the FBS level, 315 pounds, 6'2". He is a different kind of guy in the middle. I don't know that he's going to have 3 sacks because he's an interior guy, but do you feel like it is at least possible we could see something similar from him this year that we saw from Phelps last year, that a just different breed of guy comes in, dominates in the opener, and makes you feel maybe a little bit more comfortable about where that top line is on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, so I don't know about end production, right? Because defensive tackle is so hard because,
Sure.
He can do things that I think would slant, the offensive line against him. But I think so. I think he's the type of guy that you go into this game, and I think KU fans could be leaving Memorial Stadium saying, oh my God, who is number 40? Like, what is he doing at KU, right? He's the type of guy I think fits the bill of someone that, in terms of athletic profile, in terms of the size, like could be playing at some really good programs. So I think he's the type of guy that, I think he can go out there and dominate with that blend of just size and athleticism. So I would agree. I think if you're going to pick one guy on the defensive line that's going to kind of leave KU fans feeling pretty good after the game, I think I'd go with Phillips as well.
All right, Michael, we'll get you out of here on some season-long projections as we get ready for Week 1. I know you wrote about this, went game by game throughout the regular season over at Fog.net recently. This is why you should be a VIP, folks. What's the record going to be for KU this year?
I'm at 7-5, and I think, Brendan, I've been on kind of the 6-6 train, but I think the more I look at the schedule, the more I kind of come out with a 7-5 record. So I think KU will go back bowling. We'll have to see what happens in the bowl game. I didn't really think to pick a bowl win or not a bowl win, but I think regular season 7-5 for KU.
I'm gonna go with the Pop-Tarts Bowl because I love Pop-Tarts, so I'm gonna go with that one. Nice.
Hold up, that's the thing this year? I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's the old Cheez-It Bowl in Orlando.
Oh, yeah, Cheez-It went to Pop-Tarts. Yeah, and then eventually it'll be the Bagel Bites Bowl. It'll complete the round of Stoner Food sponsors.
Yeah, we'll get the Freezer Wings Bowl. Last one for you, Michael. Toughest game on the schedule this year, and Texas is the obvious answer. On the road to Austin, they are the favorites to win the league. I get that. But maybe the sneakiest, hardest game of the year for you on the KU schedule?
I'd say Oklahoma at home. I just think Oklahoma, year 2 under Brent Venables, that defense should be a lot better. And they return so much production, I think, on offense that they're always going to have really good skill position players. So I know some KU fans feel like that could be a game that maybe KU's able to steal, but I just look at them and say, man, that's a tough game, and I'm not sure if KU's going to be able to get that one.
Do you have a favorite Pop-Tart flavor?
I really didn't eat Pop-Tarts growing up. I was one of those kids that parents only got healthy things, so I wasn't really lucky enough to have Pop-Tarts consistently.
Listen, some of us ate them growing up and eat them as 28-year-old adults. So
Some of us eat them as
I love that.
36-year-old adults. Let's be real about it.
If you want the best coverage of everything going on with the Kansas Jayhawks, including week 1 against Missouri State coming up on Friday, go check out fog.net and 24/7 Sports. The VIP subscription, 100% worth it. It's the best way to see all the content from Michael Swain, KU's beat writer for 24/7. Follow him on Twitter as well, at mswain247. Michael, we appreciate the time, man. Enjoy week 1, and hopefully we'll be talking about a big win coming up this time next week.
Awesome. Sounds great, guys. Talk to you then.
That is Michael Swain from fog.net. Incredible coverage of everything going on with KU. Awesome stuff on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. We've got to take a break. We've got 1 hour left in 580 Sports Talk. We'll lead things off with our headlines, and we'll talk a little Royals baseball, too, coming up on the 5 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, final hour of 580 Sports Talk going up on a Tuesday. I'm Brendan Dorzinski. That's Dan Lucero. We are here with you until 6 o'clock today. Then we'll have a little 580 Sports Talk overtime, followed by Royals baseball. The boys in blue, 6:30 pregame, 7:10 first pitch. We'll take on the Pittsburgh Pirates tonight.
Maybe tonight they'll get a runner past second base.
Yeah, maybe they will have a hit other than a single, and maybe more than two of them.
It's not a good game last night.
No, they suck, man. Breaking news, I know. That's 7 losses in the last 8 games. And 4 in a row.
Not a good stretch.
Cole Reagan's tonight, though.
Yes, I got a good cool Cole Reagan stat.
Ooh.
That we'll share. A couple of cool Cole Reagan stats.
Hell yeah.
That we'll share a little bit later on this hour.
Colin Selby going tonight for the Pirates. You know anything about Colin Selby?
That he exists and plays for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I learned both of those things seconds ago.
See, I might have made that up. I may have made up Colin Selby. I didn't. He is indeed pitching. He's 1-0 this year with a 5.91 ERA.
Love that. Colin Selby, yeah, sure enough, there he is. Got an incredible beard.
Huge beard.
Like we're talking like Dallas Keuchel levels of beard. He's a Division III guy, Randolph-Macon College.
There you go.
Shout out to the D3s.
Yeah, he has pitched in. Okay, he's an opener. He's going to open here. He's made 8 appearances this year and has pitched not even 11 full innings.
I don't know who he's opening for. It could be, like I got.
Congrats, it's you.
I got nothing for you on the Pirates pitching staff right now. Like Curbs Lerb, they bring AJ Burnett out of retirement. Like I nothing.
Did they bring Rich Hill back?
No, they did, and then they traded him.
Great.
Yeah, I was barely aware of Johan Oviedo, and then last night he pitched like Johan Santana.
Yeah, he was incredible. The Royals were anything but. But more Royals baseball tonight. We'll talk some Royals baseball, get those fun stats from Dan about Cole Reagan's a little bit later on this hour. We're still taking your texts. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. And of course, you can leave a comment on YouTube as well. During the live stream, if you did not know this, the comment section is live, so it just keeps scrolling. It's easy to be a part of the conversation. Go back, rewind, check out stuff from earlier today. That's on the YouTube, along with all the other video content we pump out. More and more of that over the course of football season. Our channel is called 580 Sports Talk on YouTube.
If you got a good comment or a good question on the YouTube comment, we'll even share it on the program.
Yeah, we'll share
a good text, 785-272-9429.
If it's on the YouTube, we can even put it up on the screen if you say something good. We had a lot of viewers today. Thank you, everyone who has watched along today, listened along.
Yeah, appreciate the growing audience over there. It's really cool.
Yeah, so continue to send in your thoughts, text line or YouTube comment section. We've got headlines, we've got Royals, we've got more coming up this hour. We didn't end up getting to our Big 12 team previews today. The Chiefs were an hour late releasing their 53-man roster, so we will just do more college football tomorrow on the show.
In addition to talking with Tim Fitzgerald, to GoPowerCat.com, as we do every Wednesday, we will preview what we were kind of calling the also rans, and we'll also preview the contenders, which is and that will cover everybody except for KU and K-State, who we will cover in much greater detail on Thursday's show, and then, of course, preview their games on Friday. That's our Big 12, our talking Big 12 football schedule.
Additionally, while we're just telling you what's going to be on the show tomorrow, Michael Peterson from Bolts from the Blue at SB Nation, he's going to join us. We'll do our Los Angeles Chargers preview tomorrow as well.
Okay.
He's going to join us at some point.
That is not the Michael Peterson who is the subject of the HBO documentary, The Staircase.
Correct. Much different guy.
Great.
This Michael Peterson, nice guy.
Yes.
Iowa grad.
Does not know his way around a blowpoke that we know of.
No, do not believe so. By the way, Mark asked on YouTube what our subscriber numbers are up to. 324 on the YouTube. After Dan's subscriber drive a few weeks ago, we have continued to bump up the numbers. So if you haven't subscribed yet, go for it. Go check it out and check out all the fun stuff. During football season, you're going to want to, because we're going to do recaps of every Chiefs game. We'll do our live post-game shows. We'll do high school football recaps. Washburn games. Jake's going to recap all those. We'll do KU State stuff when we go to games. There's going to be a ton. So make sure you go check that out over on our YouTube. All right, we've got a bunch of headlines to get to, so let's dive right in. Our biggest headline today, we do have the Chiefs 53-man roster. Instead of reading you the entire list of cuts or the entire roster, let's get you some of the key names that did not make the initial 53. So veterans, guys who have been in the league more than 4 years who got cut. The notable ones there, Deion Bush. That was a big surprise to us. He may be brought back tomorrow after guys clear waivers, guys get put on injured reserve. Same with Danny Shelton. He did not make the initial 53, nor did Austin Reiter, although we did hear a report. Expect him to be a practice squad guy coming up tomorrow. Other notable names who were waived today, the former Kansas State Wildcat, the Lawrence native Echo Boydo. He did not make it. This is not a report. I would guess he's a practice squad guy. Shane Buechele waived today, a little bit of a surprise. Same with Matt Bushman, the tight end. Really thought he was going to make the team, especially because both LaMichael Pirine and Deneric Prince were waived as well.
Yeah, so we thought it was they'll either keep 3 tight ends and 4 running backs or 4 tight ends and 3 running backs, and they ended up 3 running backs and 3 tight ends.
Really surprised by that. Other guys who were waived today, Joshua Kando, the former 4th-round pick who has done almost nothing in his career with the Chiefs. He was waived. Darian Kennard, the 5th-round pick from a year ago. I think he was, the 2nd pick in the 5th round or the 1st pick in the 5th round last year, was not a factor on the roster a year ago. He ended up being waived today as well. Cornell Powell for the 3rd year in a row. He has been waived too. Same with the former Kansas Jayhawk, Daniel Wise. He was waived. Do wonder if he might be a practice squad guy. Not so sure about that. We will find out sooner rather than later. We'll find out tomorrow, in fact, in all likelihood. So notable guys who did then indeed make the team. Neil Farrell, who the Chiefs acquired in a trade earlier today with the Las Vegas Raiders. They sent a 6th-round pick next year to acquire the former 4th-round pick, Neil Farrell, who played his college ball at LSU. My guy Malik Herring made the team. Love that. The 3rd-year defensive end from Georgia. He was so good in college, had some severe injuries, has been on the practice squad for a couple of years. Very happy about that. Happy Malik Herring is going to stick around. Matt Dickerson on the defensive line on the interior. We barely talked about him at all over the last couple of weeks. A certain other defensive tackle has demanded a lot of our attention. We'll get to him in a moment. So Matt Dickerson ends up making the team. Other notable ones, we do believe that Mike Caliendo ended up making it, the offensive lineman from Western Michigan. Significant to note there. Prince Tega-Wanogo as well, the veteran offensive tackle from Auburn, ended up making the team. He took the spot that I probably would have expected to stay with Darian Kennard. Lucas Niang also still on the roster, seeing if he can break through and see some time. And that, I do believe, pretty much finishes off the list of notable guys who made the roster.
Most notable guy who didn't, Chris Jones, not on the 53-man roster. He was placed on the did not report list, which means he does not count against the 53-man roster. And crucially, that his salary does not count against the cap. This is crucial because the Chiefs have to sign practice squad players and make sure that they have a full 53-man roster. And they could not be cap compliant and get 53 guys. They had to move some money around. And now they have moved $19.8 million, I think it is, off of the salary cap entirely. So they will have a compliant 53-man roster under the league's salary cap rules.
I wouldn't say this felt inevitable because we both thought it might be a good faith gesture to keep him on the 53, which would also signal maybe something is coming soon. Instead, he's put on the did not report list. They don't have to pay him for the first 2 weeks of the season. That changes his cap number. That changes a potential salary or a franchise tag number next year. Should that come, that will get ugly. I'll just say that right now. That will get ugly if we get to that point. And you can, I would assume, expect a trade at that point. Also, Adam Schefter, who has been doing some public negotiating on behalf of one of the parties involved here. He tweeted out today that the sides are not close, that there is no end in sight for this holdout, which I think would be I don't know. I don't want to completely just say, oh, everything the Chiefs are doing is right and everything the player is doing is wrong. I do think it would behoove Chris Jones at some point to play football this year, but not my money and frankly, not my business. So my business is talking about what is going on, not solving the problem about what's going on. So Chris Jones did not report. He is not the only player who did not report and ended up on the DNR list. Do you know who the other one is? Not for the Chiefs. It's around the NFL.
I do not know who the other is.
The reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year. Quiet as it's been kept, because I feel like locally, obviously we're talking about Chris Jones because he's the Chief. Nationally, I feel like a lot of the talk has been about Chris Jones. Very little about Nick Bosa. But arguably, the best current edge rusher in the NFL has been holding out all summer. He wants a new contract. understandably so. His rookie contract is expiring. He wants more money than anybody. I get that. And he did not report at all during camp, at all during the preseason, and now on cutdown day. So he is also on the DNR list. San Francisco is in kind of a tough spot here, and I feel like the shine on the John Lynch era has worn off rapidly because you had today Nick Bosa go on the did not report list. That's not good. He's the best player on that team. Then Jimmy Garoppolo was asked in an interview with Sports Illustrated about the Trey Lance trade. Because if you remember, the 49ers traded multiple first-round picks to get Trey Lance to replace Jimmy Garoppolo, and now both of them are gone within just 2 years. And he was asked, hey, what do you feel about this? And Jimmy's answer was, quote, weird situation. Been a lot of those weird situations over there in San Francisco. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. I don't know. Their vibes don't seem great right now. And I know that's not quantifiable, but and it may mean nothing at all because they've still got incredible talent on that roster. But they're a lot less talented without Nick Bosa in the fold. And I'm sorry, we don't have any idea if Brock Purdy's good.
No, he played 5 games.
We have no idea if he's good.
And here's the thing, even if he is, that's one of the best rosters in the NFL. Offensive talent, defensive talent, one of the best. They've got a completely unproven quarterback and they've put all their eggs in that basket because the backup is Sam Darnold. They've got a ton of offensive talent that at some point has to get paid. Their line is iffy at best, and their best player is almost 40 on that line. Not a lot of great offensive linemen past the age of 40 in NFL history.
It's like Jackie Slater, and that's about it.
Pretty much. Jason Peters is still kicking around, but he's far from great at this point of his career.
Yeah, he'd be on a roster if he was great.
Defensively, their best player, the best defensive player in the league last year, Nick Bosa, is just not showing up to camp. And apparently those two sides are like barely even talking at this point. They, again, have a ton of talent like the offense, but at some point that talent wants to get paid, and you cannot pay everyone. That's how the salary cap works. You cannot pay every single player. So you got to figure that out. By the way, they're on to a new defensive coordinator. That has not been talked about a whole lot. And Steve Wilkes, been in the game a long time. Good coach, very good coach. Had an argument to be kept as the head coach in Carolina this past year. Had a very good argument for that, in fact. Do we know that he's going to mesh with that defense the way DeMeco Ryans did? DeMeco Ryans was perfect for that defense, and they were incredible the last couple of years. Do we know they will be as good with a new voice? Even if Steve Wilkes is a really good coach, do we know that it will work with him the way it worked with Ryans? Because Kyle Shanahan ain't over there drawing up defensive plays, okay? That's not what he's doing over there for San Francisco. I feel like that window is open, but maybe not for much longer in the Bay.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it too. Like that window's they've pooched too many first-round draft picks for that window to stay open for too long. My first headline on our 5A Sports Talk headlines, I thought we'd just go around cut down day and take a look at the most interesting things that happened across the NFL today. The biggest NFL headline, perhaps outside of our sphere of interest, is that Jonathan Taylor isn't going anywhere. There was a much publicized trade request that the Indianapolis Colts granted their star running back, but in the end, they could not find Jonathan Taylor a new home before cutdown day. So he will remain on the physically unable to perform list, which means he will miss at least the first 4 games as he tries to work his way back from an injury that he's probably able to play through, but isn't going to test it because he wants a new contract.
So I found out today, this was tweeted out by, and I don't have his name in front of me. He's the host of the Locked On Colts podcast, and he's their analyst for the Colts Sports Illustrated fan site. If you are in the final year of a contract, this is only applicable to players in the final year of a deal, and you are on PUP all year, your contract tolls, which means that you essentially suspend the contract for a year. And instead of being in the last year of his deal now, if he's on PUP all year, next year would be the last year of his contract. All he has to do is play 1 snap. He has to be activated for 1 game. Even if he plays week 5, gets quote unquote hurt again and goes on IR, that's fine. Then this is the last year of his contract. But if the Colts jerk him around and leave him on the physically unable to perform list all year, that is going to get uglier than it already. Honestly, it probably leads to a grievance, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I think there'd be a players' union grievance at that point. And I think that Jonathan Taylor would probably win that grievance.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really bad. It's really shameful what has happened there. And again, we have said this. That's a situation where when you've got the rookie quarterback that you need to make life a little easier for because he's the most unpolished of all the rookie quarterbacks, that's where you pay the running back. This is where you do it. And the Colts unwilling to do that as it pertains to Jonathan Taylor. Another player staying on PUP to start the year, Von Miller, coming off of that knee injury he suffered last year as a member of the Buffalo Bills. So he'll miss at least the first 4 games as he continues to work his way back from that knee injury. A few trades today. A bunch of kickers got moved around the league.
Yeah,
It was
weird.
really odd the last 24, 48 hours. A lot of kicker trades. Maybe the most notable one, Sean Payton went and got himself another former Saint, acquiring Will Lutz from the Saints in a trade today. Another trade, speaking of the Bills, they traded Boogie Basham to the New York Giants in exchange for a second-round pick. Boogie Basham, pretty good rotational pass rusher, and I was surprised it was a second-round pick. Was the cost that the Giants were willing to pay, but Boogie Basham goes to the Giants, and the Giants cut Oshai Zimenez, who was a third-round pick who never really produced for them as an edge rusher.
Did break Aaron Rodgers' thumb, though.
Yes, he did. That was the thing that happened. So another trade, a bit of a challenge trade. We love those. My change of scenery upper round draft pick for your change of scenery upper round draft pick. Miami and Dallas swapping cornerbacks. Noah Igbenogany to the Cowboys. Kelvin Joseph for the Dolphins. Did I talk about this just so I could say Noah Igbenogany on the radio?
Great name.
Hard to say, but yes, that's exactly why.
By the way, a quick point of clarification. Basham had been a second round pick.
He was traded for a 6th, right?
Yes. He and a 7th got traded for a 6th.
Okay. Yeah, I read that completely wrong. So that makes a hell of a lot more sense.
Someone involved was a second rounder.
Yes.
So it all loops back.
Basham traded for a 6th round pick along with a 7th round pick. A couple of notable cuts. Chosen Anderson, the wide receiver for the Panthers. He is not a Panther anymore. He was cut. The New England Patriots cut both of their backup quarterbacks today, Bailey Zappi and Malik Cunningham. Only Mac Jones on their current 53-man roster, which is pretty strange. And one note that will warm the heart. Damar Hamlin making the team for the Buffalo Bills, the safety who, of course, collapsed and nearly died on the field against the Cincinnati Bengals last season, has completed his comeback. He's all the way back, and he is a member of the 53-man roster.
Awesome.
Best news of the day by far.
No, that's so cool. By the way, he is the artist formerly known as Chosen Anderson now. He is now Robbie Chosen, and I'm not kidding.
Did he just change that?
Recent, within the last couple months, I believe, yes.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, in fact, if you Google Robbie Chosen, it still pops up as Chosen Anderson football receiver, but yeah, his name is now Robbie Chosen. Formerly Robbie Anderson with a Y and Robbie Anderson with an IE. I don't know why teams still think he might be good. He hasn't been in 4 years, but more power to you. We had a question here from Jason in the YouTube feed. Just some thoughts on Deuce Vaughn going into this year. Not a surprise. He ended up making the roster in Dallas.
He's on the 53.
He's going to play a lot for that team.
A lot? Or do you think Tony Pollard's a feature guy and going to take 80% of the snaps and carries?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, let me change that. For a 6th round pick, undersized running back, and for a team that already has a nailed-on starter, I still think you will see plenty of him. I think he'll play. I think he'll return kicks or punts at some point anyway, or it will at least be an option in special teams. And I do think there will be a couple of packages for him.
Yeah.
He was killing it in the preseason.
I wouldn't take him on my fantasy team, but I do think he's going to be a guy who makes some plays.
So in fact, I need to respond to a message he sent me. A buddy of mine, big K-State fan. We had a fantasy draft last night. I took Deuce Vaughn right before him, and then he cursed me out in the chat right after. Fairly so.
How many guys you got on your roster in the league?
15.
Okay.
It was 15-round draft. I needed a backup running back.
Interesting.
It's also a keeper league, so
yes,
all the good talent kind of gets moved around a little. I got Devonta Smith technically in the 6th round.
No, I got you.
So, 4 picks later, it snakes back around. He takes Romeo Doubs right before I pick, and immediately he offered me a trade of the two. It's like, I see your game. I see what you're doing, trading a K-State guy for a Packer. I see what you're doing. Next headline for me, fire sales usually include selling something. Then you've got the Los Angeles Angels who are having they're just giving players away, including players they acquired less than a month ago. The Angels have placed starting pitcher Lucas Giolito, relievers Matt Moore and Ronaldo Lopez, outfielder Randall Grichuk, and outfielder Hunter Renfroe on waivers. They are just giving away 5 starting caliber major league players.
All it will cost you if you claim one of those players is the rest of their salary. And Giolito and I believe all of those players, in fact, are on the last year of their contracts. So you're just paying out the rest of their No, Grichuk is. You're just paying out the rest of their contract. And the waivers work like, they probably work in your fantasy league. Worst team gets a first chance to claim them. Like, are the A's going to claim any of these guys? No. Are the Royals? No. Are the Rockies? No. So on and so forth. But like the teams that are battling it out for the 3rd wild card spot, or maybe the American League Central, they're going to get first crack at these guys. I don't think that's going to make teams further up in the standings all that happy that this is happening. It feels like making a bit of a mockery out of the system. That there's this much essentially freely available talent.
Just kind of, yeah. Mark on YouTube says, that's crazy. Why are the Angels doing that? They're trying to dump money. And they're owned by Artie Moreno, who's a bad owner.
Yeah, they're just they're a poorly run franchise. That's why they did it. It should be noted, none of those guys were performing real well for the Angels. Like Giolito's ERA was over 6. Grichuk was hitting like 113 since the trade deadline. It's been a down year for Renfroe, though he still has 18 home runs. The relievers are genuinely good. Like they got Lopez in the same trade that they got Giolito in. He's been really good in his 12 appearances. He's got a couple saves. Matt Moore's been terrific as a left-hander. 43 innings, an ERA of 2.3. So like the relievers are genuinely good. The other guys, like
whatever.
Yeah. 140. I'm sorry, the batting average for Grichuk. He is 13 of 93.
I would take either of those relievers. I'll tell you that much. Any other headlines for you?
Yes. One quick golf nerdery headline for me, and I know Jake would enjoy talking about it if he were here, but he's not. The United States announced their Ryder Cup team today. I love the Ryder Cup. Team golf in the Ryder Cup rules. I love the competition. I really enjoy and mark out for the Ryder Cup. The Ryder Cup team has been announced. 6 players qualify automatically for the U.S. team based on a point system. You gain points for playing well throughout the PGA Tour season. The qualified players, Scotty Scheffler, Max Homa, Wyndham Clark, Brian Harmon, Xander Schauffele, and playoff P himself, Patrick Cantlay. He's the real playoff P. He plays really well in the FedEx events. Wyndham Clark, of course, won the U.S. Open. Brian Harmon won the Open Championship. Scotty Scheffler won the Players and was terrific all year long. Captain Zach Johnson got 6 captain's picks. The most controversial of those picks, Justin Thomas, who played really poorly throughout this PGA Tour season, didn't even make the FedEx Cup playoffs, but he's been terrific in the Ryder Cup in the past, and he's going to be a part of the team this year. Also, Brooks Koepka, a live golfer, is going to play in the Ryder Cup. Now, European live golfers are not eligible for the European Ryder Cup.
Wow.
But Zach Johnson can pick American live golfers, and he did. He picked Koepka, who, of course, won the PGA earlier this year. Jordan Spieth, Ricky Fowler, Colin Morikawa, Sam Burns, rounding out the 12-player roster that will go to Italy. Marco Simone Golf Club.
This is mostly just list 12 golfers that I've heard of.
Well, hey, if you've heard of them all, that's a good start.
That is a good start.
You've been hanging out with Jake and me too much.
That's also possibly true. That does it for today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. I'm going to dip out of here real quick since I won't have a final word today. Shout out to you guys for listening. Today marks 6 years that I have been here. 6 years to the day. It was a Tuesday afternoon. You and Jake were on remote, and I was here in the studio alone, and then you all learned that I took food off people's plates at restaurants. All right, I am out of here. Thank you guys for listening. Looking forward to tomorrow's show. Dan's got you the rest of the way on 580 Sports Talk.
5:32 on 580 Sports Talk. Stars the three-person show today. Now we're down to just one. Yours truly, Dan Lucero, got you the rest of the way. Jake and Brendan had some other duties to go and take care of. Speaking of Jake, you can catch him tonight, the debut edition for 2023 of the Washburn Football Coaches Show. It's going down live at Skinny's from 6 to 7 tonight. You can hear it over on our sister station, the home of the Ichabod's Country 106.9. Catch it online as well. Jake will be talking to Craig Schurig ahead of the season opener Thursday night. The Ichabod's on the road at Pitt State. The first Washburn Football Coaches Show of the year. It is that time of year. It's hard to believe on one hand. Like it obviously we've had the run up. We've talked plenty of football. We've watched preseason NFL. Some of us more than others. We've watched, week 0 college football last Saturday, watched a bunch of that. So like, I'm not surprised by football being right around the corner, but game week jumps on you no matter what. Like when it's the first game week, and this is game week for Washburn. This is game week for high school football. This is game week for KU, game week for K-State. It jumps on you. And it's exciting. Certainly lots to talk about with regards to all of those things here in the next couple of days on 580 Sports Talk. Again, the Chiefs roster is down to 53 players. Their cuts made today. Go ahead and run through the whole list just in case you missed it. 4 players are vested veteran players that are released today. So they are not subject to waivers. They have provisions in their contract because they're veteran NFL players. They have a certain status where they are not subject to waivers. And I would expect all 4 of these players to wind up with the Chiefs practice squad. Tight end Kendall Blanton, defensive back Deon Bush, center Austin Ryder, and defensive tackle Danny Shelton were all released today. Shelton, I think, wants to be in Kansas City. Ryder, a lot of talk about bringing him back to the practice squad. Blanton was on the practice squad last year. Deon Bush, this is my suspicion. I have no sourcing to back this up. But the Chiefs are going to make a roster move tomorrow, and they're going to place Nick Jones on injured reserve. And the reason you don't do that today is if you place somebody on injured reserve today, they have to stay on injured reserve for the entire season. And that would be a season-ending injury for Nick Jones. Well, his broken fingers are not season-ending, and I think the Chiefs still want to use him this year. So he'll go on IR tomorrow. I think there's actually a time. I think it's 4 p.m. Eastern tomorrow where you can start placing players on injured reserve with injuries that you would like them to come back from. That's not long-term season-ending injured reserve. So Nick Jones is going to get placed on injured reserve. Chiefs then are going to need another defensive back, and I think that defensive back is going to be Deon Bush. That is my guess. I could be completely wrong. That roster spot might go to Danny Shelton. That roster spot, I would be surprised if it were Shelton. They've already got 10 defensive linemen on the 53. That roster spot could go to Shane Buechele, who was cut today. It could go to another running back. It could go to another tight end. But my guess is it's going to be Bush. It'll be a like for like. One defensive back goes to IR. Another defensive back is selected and makes the roster. Anyway, those 4 players released. I think they'll all hang around. Players who were waived today, and the list is alphabetical. Defensive back DiCaprio Boodle from Nebraska. Chiefs have held on to him for a couple of years now on the practice squad and may try and do so again. Echo Boydo out of Kansas State. I know a lot of Wildcat fans, a lot of local folks were rooting for Echo to make the team. To be an undrafted guy and have a legit look at making the 53 tells you what he was able to accomplish throughout minicamp and training camp. I think he will be a practice squad guy. Shane Buechele was waived. That was pretty surprising, but it looks like the Chiefs are going to ride with 2 quarterbacks like they did last year and try and sneak Buechele through waivers onto their practice squad. Matt Bushman, the tight end, the Bushman. We all thought he was going to make the roster around here. Thought the Chiefs would keep 4 tight ends. Looks like for the moment that they will keep 3. Cole Christensen, linebacker out of Army. He got hurt in the preseason finale. Not seriously. He was cleared to play, but he did not make the roster. Also waived today, defensive back Anthony Cook, running back Jarian Ely, wide receiver Ty Freifogel. Ely and Freifogel could both make the practice squad. Maybe Cook too, undrafted rookie out of Texas. Wide receiver Isaiah Gathings. Offensive lineman Chukwuebuka Godric, who was the international program player, the Nigerian, who did not play college football. He did not make the 53-man roster. Juwan Green, another wide receiver. Tackle Sebastian Gutierrez. Defensive back Khalif Halasi. I think he's a practice squad guy. Tackle Anderson Hardy. Defensive tackle Phil Hoskins. Defensive back Lamar Jackson. He's kicked around the league a little bit. I think somebody picks him up, if not the Chiefs. Defensive end Truman Jones. Defensive end Joshua Kando. 4th-round pick. Hasn't panned out. I suspect that the Chiefs would like to keep Kando on the practice squad. But again, 4th-round pick. Somebody might see some potential there and pluck him off of waivers. Tackle Darian Kennard. This was an eyebrow raiser too. 5th-round pick 2 years ago. SEC Offensive Lineman of the Year. Chiefs kept him on the practice squad last year. Didn't make the 53. And I think they want to keep him on the practice squad again. But this is a player I thought would develop a little quicker. And I think maybe the Chiefs did too. Thought he would develop a little quicker to be a swing lineman, a guard / tackle in the mold of a Nick Allegretti. And that's just hasn't happened yet for the former Kentucky Wildcat. Also waived by the Chiefs today as we continue down the list. Defensive backs Deron Lowe and Isaiah Norman. Quarterback Chris Oladokin. Running back LaMichael Pirine. If they'd kept 4 running backs, Pirine was in line to be running back number 4. Sure, they'd like to keep him on the practice squad. Wide receiver Cornell Powell's been a practice squad fixture. Chiefs like him, but just not one of the 7 best wide receivers, so he didn't make the team. Deneric Prince. Eventually we're going to hear, I hope eventually we hear what happened with Deneric Prince, because he was the undrafted free agent that when that signing period was done and dusted, the undrafted free agent signing period, Prince was immediately a guy who stood out because of some of his measurables, some of his 40 times. He had a similar profile to an Isaiah Pacheco, who the Chiefs drafted in the 7th round and became their starting running back. So he was interesting just on paper, and then had a terrific rookie camp, had a great start to training camp. And going into week 1 of the preseason, I think he was on the roster. I think he was going to be the kick returner, and I think he was going to be the 4th running back. He was on the roster. People talked about it. The people that we have that are experts, our Chiefs insiders, our Chiefs guys that we talk to on this show, they were talking about it with certainty. Deneric Prince was going to make the roster. Deneric Prince did not make the roster. And it's not like he was so bad in that first preseason game. I mean, he wasn't great. I think he had like 4 carries for 14 yards, didn't distinguish himself in kickoff return. Richie James might have passed him there anyway. But I really want to know how Deneric Prince went from a lock to not making the 53 in basically a week. Like, the buzz was gone after that first preseason game and into preseason game number 2. There's a story there, and I'd love to hear it. But I suspect he will be a practice squad guy, be one of the 16 that make the practice squad. Wide receiver Ty Scott, defensive back Reese Taylor, defensive tackle Chris Williams, and defensive end Daniel Wise round out the list of players who were waived. Williams and Wise both got significant preseason playing time. One or both could be practice squad guys or get picked up by another team. 3 players waived with an injury designation. Those are offensive lineman Jerome Carvin, linebacker Olakunle Fatukasi, and wide receiver Nico Remigio, who we know the Chiefs were high on and had a good preseason performance before he injured his shoulder. Chiefs traded wide receiver Ihmir Smith-Marsette to the Carolina Panthers earlier today. In case you missed that, there's a conditional 7th round pick swap that's part of that trade. Chiefs also used a 6th round pick to acquire Neil Farrell, a defensive tackle from the Raiders. And then there is Chris Jones on the reserve / did not report list. It may just be procedural to allow the Chiefs to be able to have the cap room necessary to put guys on the practice squad and put guys on their 53-man roster. They needed the cap room to do that, and putting Jones on this list gives them that room without meaning they have to restructure anybody else's contract. So it could just be procedural, but you could read a lot more into it. And I'll be frank, I do think that this portends that the negotiations have stalled. And right now the ball is kind of in Chris Jones's court. And he's either going to sign what the Chiefs have offered or not, that the Chiefs aren't going to budge. And I don't know how much budge Chris Jones has in him. I don't think it's any. So this situation looks a lot bleaker than it did when training camp started. And I have been pretty positive about it since the start of training camp. Pretty optimistic that something would get done. This makes me less optimistic, although I could be misreading it. I could be overthinking it. It would not be the first time I have done that, misinterpreted or overthought a gesture. I have done that many times in my life. I know we all have. But this is the first procedural thing the Chiefs have done that make me feel like, yeah, they might not think they're going to get him on the field week 1. So that's the complete accounting of what the cuts, the waves, look like for the Chiefs. We'll have plenty more to say about the 53-man roster that the Chiefs put out on tomorrow's edition of the show. We're going to take a quick break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, I've got a cool Royals stat. I know that sounds like a misnomer, like an oxymoron, like it can't possibly exist. But I've got a cool collection of stats about tonight's starting pitcher for the Royals. And I'll share them with you next as 580 Sports Talk continues. .46 on 580 Sports Talk. Going up on a Tuesday. Wrapping up shortly here on a Tuesday. We got a few more minutes to show, and then we got some overtime for you ahead of Royals baseball tonight. In case you missed our conversation with the great Jesse Newell, joined the show to talk Chiefs, and of course we ended up talking about KU football and him being maybe a good luck charm and also somehow a bad luck charm. It was a fun conversation with Jesse. We're excited to re-rack it for you as our 580 Sports Talk overtime conversation of the day leading into Royals baseball. Before I get to that, real quick note. We had mentioned in headlines the Los Angeles Angels placing 5 players on waivers today. We now know why. And not just because they're giving up, running up the white flag, all that good stuff. The competitive balance tax in baseball, you spend certain money, a certain amount of money on player payroll. There's a competitive balance tax, and there are different tiers of the tax. There's, I think, 3 tiers of the competitive balance tax. The Angels, as it currently stands, are above the first tier of the tax. And if these players get claimed, the 5 that were waived today, they would then fall below the competitive balance tax, and that would improve the draft pick compensation they would be eligible for if they were to lose a certain player, I don't know, Shohei Ohtani, to free agency. If they were to lose Ohtani to free agency and they were above the competitive balance tax, they would be eligible for a pick after the 4th round of the Major League Baseball entry draft. But if they weren't above the tax, they could get a pick after the 2nd round. So they're playing salary games is what they're doing. And also, maybe if you read between the tea leaves, they are admitting that there's no way in hell Shohei Ohtani is going to wear that uniform next year, because they went all in to try and win with him, and this is what happened. I mean, it's not their fault he got hurt. It's not anybody's fault Ohtani got hurt, but this is what happens. This is what happens to the Angels. This is what has happened to the Angels pretty much nonstop since Artie Moreno has been their owner. Anyhow, that's the why of that, in case you were curious. I promise you cool Royals stats. I think they're cool. And they're about tonight's starting pitcher, Cole Reagans, who has been one of the few reasons to keep any attention on the Royals as they struggle towards the inevitable end of what will be the worst season in franchise history. They lost last night. They got shut out on 2 hits, and they did not have a runner advance beyond second base. It was as grim and as dreary an effort as the Royals have put forth all season. But they got Cole Reagans going tonight. Here are the cool Cole Reagans stats. And I want to make sure that I credit these stats appropriately. So I have to find them again. I did a screenshot, but I clipped it poorly. These stats from Ian Kraft, who is the assistant director of Royals public relations. Cole Reagans was recalled from the minor leagues by the Royals on August 2nd. In that time frame, he is tied for second in all of baseball in earned run average. He got 2.12 earned run average. He has struck out 44 batters in that span, which is the most of any pitcher in all of baseball. And he has struck out 36.4% of batters he has faced, which is the best in all of baseball in that time frame, in the last 27 days. That 36.4% strikeout rate is the highest in Royals club history for any month of the season. Not highest in August, not highest for a left-hander, not highest in the last 10 years, highest ever in any month. And if Reagans can sit down 6 or more Padres tonight, he will record 50-plus strikeouts in the month. And that will be only the second time it has ever been accomplished by a Royal in franchise history. I don't know who has the record there. I don't know who struck out 50 batters in a month in Royals history. I'm going to see if I can find that. I'm going to guess it was Greinke. Maybe it could have been Danny Duffy. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to find that in enough time to get you an answer there. But yeah, Cole Reagans doing big things for the Royals. And it is a good thing he's doing big things, because another pitcher that the Royals acquired from the Texas Rangers this year, Taylor Hearn, yeah, he might just be bad. Actually, he was a former Ranger, but they got him from the Braves in the Nicky Lopez trade. The Braves had claimed him off of waivers from the Rangers. So 2 former Rangers pitchers, left-handers in the Royals organization that the Royals went out of their way to acquire this year. And one of them has turned into a frontline starting pitcher, it appears, or at least is pitching like one. And the other just got sent down to the minor leagues again today. That's kind of how it goes. When it comes to young pitchers, you're trying to develop young pitchers, you better have as many as possible, because you're not going to have a 100% success rate. The Royals should be intimately familiar with that fact, given what has become of their vaunted pitching draft class of 2018. So Taylor Hearn hasn't been able to get anybody out of the bullpen. He was demoted today. Steven Cruz was called up and will make his major league debut. Cruz was acquired in the Michael A. Taylor trade this offseason. The ERA is pretty unsightly at AAA Omaha, but he does have 22 strikeouts in 17 innings, and that's more important than what the ERA is. Striking out 11.6 batters per 9. That'll play. So congratulations to him upon his debut, whenever that may be. But yeah, I guess that's the bad news from last night. They got shut out on 2 hits, and Taylor Hearn stinks. And that was not really looking like a redeemable trade, even if it was defensible at the time to trade Nicky Lopez, a player who didn't factor into your future, for a player who might. But it's going to take something pretty drastic for Taylor Hearn to factor into the future at this point, I think, for the Kansas City Royals. We're taking one final break this hour here on 580 Sports Talk. We're going to come back, and we're going to wrap up the show. We got the final word, my final word, coming up next here on 580 WIBW. Wrapping up and walking off this edition of 580 Sports Talk with the final word. I'm Dan Lucero. I didn't scare everybody else off. Don't worry about that. Jake and Brennan will be back in the box with me tomorrow, and we'll have lots of great stuff on tomorrow's show. But wrapping up today's show with the final word, we always get asked when we're previewing Cut Down Day, everybody does in this industry, to predict whether or not there will be surprise cuts. And there always are surprise cuts. But if we could pin them down, they wouldn't be surprises. We'd know they were coming. Like, there were certain players today we certainly knew, like DiCaprio Boodle wasn't going to make the 53-man Chiefs roster. We all knew that. Cornell Powell wasn't going to make the roster. Chris Oladokun wasn't going to make the roster. But Chiefs did do some surprising things today. Only keeping 2 quarterbacks, only keeping 3 running backs and 3 tight ends. So essentially, when you include quarterbacks, the Chiefs ended up keeping 15 skill players. We thought they might keep 18. There's more offensive linemen. There's more defensive linemen. There's an extra linebacker. Congrats to Cam Jones, undrafted rookie out of Indiana, making the team, probably as a core special teams guy. It's an exciting day for those who make the 53-man roster. And it's a hard thing to do, make a roster in the National Football League. So salute to everybody who heard their name called today, or maybe didn't hear their name called, as the case may be, and has made a roster in the league. That's going to do it for 580 Sports Talk. We got overtime coming your way next. Hang around for that. For Jake, for Brett, it's 580 Sports Talk.